Louis absent. Mr. DeLeo?
Here.
Mr. Donahue?
Present.
Mr. O'Day?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt is absent. Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
Ms. Mara?
Here.
Okay. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Bernardsville News, Courier News, and the Star Ledger, filed with the Municipal Court and posted on the bulletin board on December 12, 2017. Let's all rise for a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a mayor's proclamation, distracted driving crackdown. I will go ahead and read that into the record, if I can find it. Okay. Proclamation of Mayor Borough of Bernardsville supporting the distracted driving 2018 crackdown, April 1st to the 21st of April 2018. Whereas distracted driving is a serious, life-threatening practice that is preventable, and whereas distracted driving can result in injuries and death to all road users, motorists, pedestrians, and bicyclists. And whereas distracted driving occurs when drivers divert their attention from the task of driving to focus on another activity instead, and whereas in 2015 alone, distracted driving related crashes resulted in 3,477 deaths and 391,000 injuries in our nation's roads. And whereas in New Jersey, distracted driving was listed as a contributing circumstance in nearly 750,000 crashes between 2011 and 2015. And whereas the state of New Jersey will participate in a nationwide distracted driving 2018 crackdown starting on April 1st to the 21st of April 2018 in an effort to raise awareness and decrease driver distraction through a combination of enforcement and education. And whereas the national slogan for this campaign is "You drive, you tax, you pay." And whereas a reduction in distracted driving in New Jersey will save lives on our roadways. Now, therefore, I, on behalf of Mayor Kevin Seward, Mayor of Borough of Bernardsville, declare support of the distracted driving 2018 crackdown, both locally and nationally, from April 1st to April 21st, 2018, and pledge to increase awareness of the dangers of distracted driving. Dated 2016, March, 26th day of March 2018. Okay? So why don't we move on to approval of minutes? Does anybody have any comments for the minutes? February 26th and March 12th? I'll make a motion.
A motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we need a roll call for that? No. Okay. Okay, so now we move on to open session. Yes?
Anthony, just, I was absent, so I can't, I'm voting yes, but I'm one that was present.
I'm the one you're asking.
Okay. So, open session. At this point in the meeting, the mayor and council welcome comments from any members of the public to help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit the opportunity for anyone who wishes to be heard. Speakers shall limit their comments to 5 minutes. If reading from prepared statement, please provide a copy and email a copy to the clerk's office after making your comments, so may be properly reflected in the minutes. So I'd like to open the open session. Does anybody want to come forward?
I'm just going to say that on the 23rd, I will present before the council the farmers market again, but this year we're going to have more pop-up vendors. I don't have them all yet, but we had 3 last year. We had Haynes Farm with maple syrup. We had garlic from a local gourmet heirloom. We had Black River spices. And this year I was down at Duke Falls for their winter market, and we're looking at Nicholas Esposito, who has dyers plants and fine oils and tonics, jams by Kim, nut butter and sweets, calendar hot sauce. I don't know if they're all gonna come, but, you know, the idea is to spice up the market a little bit, with new people, once or twice during the summer. So that'll be on the 23rd, I'll come back to you with that.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Step forward.
I don't know if this is the proper time or not, but I have a couple of questions about the ordinance to purchase 20 Dryden Road.
When we do the we'll open that up for discussion. And I think it's the fourth one on the list here. Okay, you could come forward then. Anybody else?
Andy Ferrante, Mullins Lane. So I'm reading like the Chinese prepared statement, but if you want me to type it, I will.
No, that's fine.
Good evening, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council. I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to hear my request. I totally understand your hesitation at naming a field in honor of my father-in-law, Lou Ferrante. I know that you don't want everyone in town bringing in their parents' names for a field. That being said, most people's relatives haven't done what Lou did for the borough of Bernardsville. The way I see it, this council has the opportunity to recognize an outstanding member of this community. As I've said before, Lou did what he did just to help Bernardsville become the town where we all want to live in. This council can encourage young members of the community to volunteer their time and efforts and see that it does not go unnoticed. What precedent are we setting if the only names we see around town are those who have kind of given money? Shouldn't we recognize time, effort, and dedication, especially to those who put all three of those into their entire 78 years of life in this town? Another thing I wanted to point out was that the Basking Ridge field, that whole baseball complex, is named after Charles Fortenbacher, who was their chief of police and the president of their Little League. So it seems to be a normal goings on, but he wasn't just a position, his was not a position of paid employee, it was a position of exemplary volunteer who just did everything he could. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you for coming forward. I've discussed with Christine before the meeting if she'd like to chair a committee to go through our current policy we have and also make a recommendation. So Christine, would you chair that committee?
Yes, so I would also like to add that we have been researching and trying to determine the best way to honor his memory, because you are 100% right that he should be honored. So I am researching the best way to do that. So whether it's through public space naming for him, or a field, or a park, we're just trying to determine like the best way to do that. In addition to that, we want to determine a great way to acknowledge other people, because it is necessary in a community to set the guidelines for people as far as how, if I want to honor my loved one or my family member, how can I do it? Whether it's $100 or $100,000 or 20 acres of land, there's all different levels of honoring people in the community. So I'm hoping to come up with a very good plan that can grow in time. So you planted that seed, and I want to thank you, because it's a great idea, and it's just going to take a little bit more research, but it's coming. And the committee right now is me, but I will make it.
Do we need to vote on that? The council?
Yeah, since the mayor's not here, I guess, I think the council should vote.
Well, I also think that open space goes hand in hand with this, and we already have an open space committee, so maybe it can be kind of working with the open space committee to come up with a way, because not only would you be allowing members of the community to have a say and an input in how our public spaces are maintained and named, but it would help us, essentially, if we want to maintain a bench in a park or add a bench to a park, give the members of the community who want to honor their loved ones and maybe get a tax write-off in the process to do that. So that's kind of the way other towns are doing it, and we can do the same. It just has to be kind of, Jack and I are kind of working on something that will work, not only now, but forever. So, it's in the works.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we should do a roll call on that, Jack, you think?
Well, I don't think you need a roll call.
Okay.
Just, maybe even wait till the next meeting when you have some more members, interested in seeing
Okay.
maybe one.
All right,
We'll
that's
have
fine.
members.
Well, thank you.
Oh, if you do, I mean, you can do it tonight.
No, I don't have
You
that.
can add half a minute, so.
Yeah.
Anybody else for open session? Anybody? Okay, I will close the open session, and we'll move on to ordinances. So the first one tonight is ordinance 11-1762, an ordinance adopting rules and regulations and fees for the turf field located at the Polo Grounds. I want to open the public hearing for that. Does anybody have a comment or want to step forward? No? With that?
There's one.
Where's Old Fort Road? I think a lot of work went into this, and I appreciate that. But one of the things when I read the backup material that was here was that there was no provision. You're going to be charging fees for these, for the turf field, let's say. We'll just keep it at that. How do those fees compare to what people, other communities that surround us? Were they comparable? Were they higher? Were they lower? Were they the same?
So I could address that. The
Okay.
Recreation Committee looked at, I would say, around 15 towns in the surrounding area.
Okay,
And the one that was most comparable is the Baskin Ridge.
okay,
So this is almost, I think it's almost the same as the
Okay.
Baskin Ridge fees.
good. The one thing I noticed, which I think is a glaring problem, is where's the money going? We have a need for that money because this field can only last so long. So in my estimation, what I was surprised and disappointed at was the fact that no one here had the initiative to put this money aside to replace this field when the carpet wears out, let's say 5, 10, or 15 years from now. So maybe I didn't read it right, but it looks to me as if all the fields are going into the general and municipal budgets rather than having a separate sinking fund that would be fiscally responsible on behalf of the borough and on behalf of the people here to make sure that that happened. So if it hasn't happened, I suggest that
So
you...
I can address that, Skip.
Okay,
All right, so that was discussed at the Recreation level, at the Recreation Committee level. And part of the open space, 20% comes from the recreation fees out of the Open Space Trust Fund every year. Part of those fees are going to be put aside every year, along with, we're not sure how much we're going to be able to generate in the first couple of years. So we're going to take portions of that and portions of our rentals to save at least $50,000 to $60,000 a year, put it aside, so when it's time to replace this field in 10 years, we have money and we don't have to go back to the taxpayers for it.
So I'd like to add to Mr. DeLeo's comments. We also talked about this in the Finance Committee meeting. We discussed the combination of open space funds and actually keeping track of the use of the field this year to document how much we think is going to be generated in revenue each year and set that money aside in plans to resurface the field at an appropriate time. So you can
earmark money in future budgets or future open space monies, no matter, you don't know what they're going to be because you don't know what the valuation of the entire town's going to be, and we have a 2% tax. So you can take 20% of the 2%, and you have no idea what those monies are going to be, but you're going to say you'll take a portion of that. So what's it right now, $438,000, Ralph? Less? Open space tax.
Open
What would
space
make
was at
2017?
370, and the 210 that was going towards the capital program this year will bring it down to 70, and then in August there'll be another 100,000 put in there for this year's taxes, so it'll be 170 by August.
But the total taxes, where the 20% counts against, is that going to be 20% of 170? No.
No,
This is for, not for maintenance.
No, I understand. Open space place gets about 490,000 somewhere around there.
440.
Is it 440?
Okay, I don't know.
I believe it's higher.
Okay.
I believe it's just under 500.
Okay, so if it's 500,000, 20% is 100,000.
Yes.
So that's used for all of recreational development. So, and as an example, on tonight's agenda, 20 Dryden Road, right? They want to buy the property, and they want to develop it for recreational purposes, whatever that may be. Where are they going to get the money for that? So they're going to take it out 100,000, but they've already decided that they're going to take out a certain portion of that.
No, what we said is we've already discussed the idea of using a combination of the fees
Okay.
that are generated in the revenue for the use of the
Okay.
field, and as a backup, some portion to be determined of the maintenance fund.
And will that be in a separate fund, collecting money in a
So
fund?
we need to discuss with Ralph exactly what the mechanisms would be for doing it.
There's a reserve set up for that. The internal reserve for this year's budget, there's $40,000 from the capital improvement fund to start this.
Okay, so, again, is that a separate dedicated fund?
Yes, it is.
It's a reserve.
Okay, the reserve, fine. So it's 40,000 this year.
Starting with 40, yes, that's correct.
But you'll have to increase that over a period of time. If the field costs down the road, their numbers were thrown out. I took it from where the last, the turf field, the last referendum came from. I think the replacement cost was close to $600,000 or $700,000. I can go back and look it up. So
we
if you have a
can look
10,
at that,
let me
yeah.
finish. If you have a 10-year program, so you're going to need between $60,000 and $70,000 a year. Right now, you only have 40. Okay.
In our first year, we're going to monitor the use of the field so that we can calculate the revenue from the field that the field itself will generate, and that'll give us a better idea of exactly how much money we'll need. We set aside $40,000 this year, year one, but we don't have a track record of the use and the portion of the use that's going to be from local teams, which pay a lower fee, from teams that have a portion of our local participants, and then also from for-profit teams, which pay a higher fee.
And in addition to that, these fees are, when are we going to start collecting the fees for 2018?
We're not.
We're not? Ah,
The reason why is
Okay.
because the programs all started their registration before the field was put in. So it would be unfair to charge our local nonprofit organizations, our children out of town, our taxpayers out of town, fees this year. They will prepare themselves next year with the fees they'll know they're paying.
okay, so I'm assuming that the Somerset Hills Football Club will be using that field, right?
Yes,
And they don't start practice till August?
August.
Did they start did they already have
started their registration.
Okay. And we didn't know that we were going to have a field ready before today? Okay.
Anybody else want to be heard? Okay, so I'll close the,
Yeah.
yes?
Peter Birnbaum, 144 Round Top Road. I'd like to congratulate the Recreation Committee for doing this. It's been a long time coming. We've tried to get this thought about before. It's a very, very complicated issue, having been through it before, and also partly in my term on the council, to figure out what's fair, what's right, and also navigate some of the emotions of all these teams. Reality is a lot of towns do this. It's nothing new. And I know that you've been working on it for a very long time. It just takes a long time to do it. We certainly have other committees that struggle with these things as well.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I will close the public meeting, and I'll,
Do we have a chance to ask questions
yes,
now or
go ahead,
later?
yes.
Okay.
yes.
So I was looking at this, and this came up in last week's meeting, or the last meeting we had 2 weeks ago. And I've noticed that the language is struck about the snow removal, which was at the request of John McDowell, right?
Right.
So there was some discussion 2 weeks ago about putting some other language in here. I noticed this is just struck, nothing else.
Well,
is in
there is, there's language actually here on page 18. It's,
Yeah, there already was language.
don't worry, it's in here, trust me. It's in one of these bullet points. Here it is, only authorized personnel can clear this. I don't know if we clarified that or not. I mean, so only authorized personnel can clear the, hopefully we won't need it this year, but ice and snow? Okay.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
I would say only authorized personnel. I mean, if it snows, you know, overnight and the kids wanna like push, you know, shovels across the field, that they can't do that?
Well, I think that was.
I think
No.
the answer to that is no, because there's a risk involved with that when you give, you know, essentially players on a team shovels that have sharp edges. The turf isn't really designed to withstand a sharp edge going into it, and that could potentially damage it. So the reason that we are saying no to that is because there's ways of properly removing snow from the turf.
But what, you know, I was just wondering, what did the owner's manual say? I mean,
So,
Actually-
I have some experience with this from a soccer club that my husband is the president of. So there are ways to add attachments to a tractor or any type of snow removal machine that will block the blade or any type of sharp edge from hitting the turf. And that's what's needed in order to remove snow from the turf. Now, whether or not it's possible to do with a bunch of kids and shovels, of course it is. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if you don't want to damage the turf and have to pay more than $40,000 a year, then it's probably in our best interest not to let kids shovel the turf.
It would also void a warranty with the turf company, which is even more important.
Even a bigger deal. And then that's also, someone in the audience just said, there's a liability also involved if a child, you know, gets hurt shoveling, whether or not that's part of his sports, you know, was he supposed to be doing that? You know, the parent would have a good case if their child got injured shoveling snow that they weren't supposed to be doing, so.
Okay. Anybody else?
Nope.
Good. Anybody else from the public? All right, I'll close the hearing. And motion? Anybody want a motion?
I'll move.
I need a second. Roll call?
Mr. DeLeo?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, guys. We'll move on to our second ordinance. So I want to open a public hearing on ordinance 18-1764, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limit and to establish a cap bank as per New Jersey SA 440A, semicolon 4-44, 45.14. I want to open the public hearing for this.
Can I just put that in layman's terms for me, just to be clear? So we're raising our spending by 3.5% over last year's number?
No. Since the beginning, everyone is familiar with the 2% amount to be raised on taxation cap that we have. There's also a second cap on appropriations of 2%. But each year that you do not exceed that 2%, raising your appropriations by that amount, by passing this ordinance, you can bank that number that you haven't exceeded. Say it's $200,000 and you don't exceed by anything. So you have $200,000 can be banked for the following year if you need it. And then if it's not spent that following year or needed in that year, it goes away. It's as a one-year term. And since the inception of this program, the borough has done this year after year to create this cap bank. I believe we've used not very little of it over different periods of time throughout the years, but normally we don't ever need it or use it, but it's just there in case. And that's what's been done since it's been in place, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so, maybe longer.
So we're not actually voting to increase spending, we're just sort of creating, if we don't, you know, if we have the headroom, but if we don't use it, it sort of goes into a bank.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
And it has a life of 1 year. Next year it's gone. And that's, as I said, that's been done in perpetuity since its inception here at the borough.
Any comments from the public? No? Okay, I will move forward and close the public hearing. Motion to pass on final reading and adopt as published. Roll call. Motion to move.
I'll move.
Second.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Mara?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeo?
Yes. Okay. Our third is open a public hearing for ordinance 18-1765, an ordinance concerning performance and maintenance guarantees, amending section 11-1 in volume 2 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Bernardsville, 1997, entitled Improvement Guarantees. I'd like to open a public hearing on this ordinance. Comments from council? Questions? No? Okay, I will go ahead and close the public meeting.
Because of the record,
Yep.
Leo, that the planning board did review it as required by the MLUL, and they found it is not inconsistent with the master plan, which is their charge, as far as negative.
Okay. Thank you, Jack. Motion to pass on final reading and adopt as published. Motion to move, second?
Second?
Okay. Roll call?
Mr. DeLeo?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mara?
Yes.
Okay. Our fourth ordinance today is, I open the public hearing on ordinance 18-1766, an ordinance appropriating $1.2 million from the Borough Open Space Trust Fund, of which $500,000 is to be reimbursed from a Green Acres grant for the purchase of 20 Dryden Road. Open for discussion. Peter?
President, I'd like to ask the chairperson of the Open Space Committee had work commitment tonight, be here in about 20 minutes, so if you could postpone this till after the other business is done, that would be appreciated, because obviously the chairperson is doing all of this.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Thank you.
You just postponed, you have a window of 20.
Oh, I was just gonna say, should we
Yeah,
let other
you, maybe, Jack, can we open it up?
Might be a 20-minute discussion,
Let's open
so-
the discussions up. Come on.
Shall I come up there?
You need to come up, state your name and your address.
Okay.
Thank you.
Should we only use this so it's on the,
I don't, is that on?
It records,
it records it better
it
for
gets the
the,
sound either way, really, but if you want to talk into that, but it's pretty much.
Yeah, we're gonna have a second open session then, once they present.
Yeah, because I got some comments on this too, so.
My name's Chris Kersey, and I reside at 250 Post Coonhart Road in Bernardsville with my wife, Helen, is back there, as are a couple of my neighbors. And firstly, I'd like to thank Christine and Anthony for responding to an email within hours. That's fantastic. I just have a couple of general questions about the intended use for this land and what the restrictions are for that use, how permanent the intention will be, and one last question is, are variances required in order to do this, whatever it is we want to do? Those are my two questions.
Peter, would you like to address some of these questions on behalf of the
I
open
can.
space? Why don't you? You're
Okay,
well
so-
aware of what's going on.
so Peter is, he's a former councilman, and he worked on the acquisition of this property along with the Open Space Committee.
Okay.
And I shared with you in the email the open space document, just so, which is very comprehensive and talks a lot about the conservation portion, so Peter knows all about it.
Fantastic. Sorry about that.
It's getting better.
Still works.
Okay, so the records from the Open Space Committee, as well as testimony to Somerset County, looking for some matching funds from them as well, will show that the discussion is only surrounded passive space, not to have active team competitions, which would be very noisy, especially out of respect for the neighbors, the size and purpose of the zoning, which is to provide a great amount of privacy and protection to those neighbors. There's been some nothing formal other than preservation first, and then looking at how we have some conceptual ideas that have been tossed around, nothing specific, nothing concrete, because having a lot of experience with open spaces, you really have to acquire something first, and then you actually have to develop some of those specific plans, because, you know, it's a transaction, and you obviously have to keep, you know, some things quiet for you know, other people trying to, just to preserve the integrity of the transaction for the public. We've had a lot of talk about the historic stone walls from the barn, which are actually rather unusual in that location, and it would make a very great area for quiet time. It would be shaded, it would be very cool. So anybody looking for some, you know, peaceful area outside of some of our more active recreation areas, it would be a great place to sit. Potentially even some, you know, low-key kind of artistic events if that was of interest to people in the area. But basically trying to keep it for walking. Potentially, I mean, we have talked about something as active as a dog park, but that's not really considered active recreation. It means it's you know, a lot of people have expressed interest over the last several years for a need in town, because they have to go out of town and travel quite a bit right now. And it is socially a way of bringing people together to talk, and people with their dogs do like to talk to each other and spend time. So basically that is it. And until, from my experience, and Jack, you've done these as well, to have restrictions and all those kinds of things before you acquire, you know, that normally doesn't happen. But I just wanted to share with you very, very straightforward what the conversation has been. And we're certainly very cognizant that having lights and horns and whistles is not what the town has designated this area for, from a zoning point of view, and certainly would be very unwelcome from the taxpayers who've helped to fund these initiatives. And then, do you want me to stay here for questions, or would you?
Well, I just want to clarify that so the ordinance tonight is just the acquisition of the land and preservation of it as open space. It's not any development, there's no plan, even if a committee has discussed different ideas, that we're not approving anything other than the acquisition and preservation of the land.
And you have to acquire, you know, before you can really do anything, and there's a certain series of rather, you know, extensive steps. And the first thing is we have to approve this so that we can then send it on to the to Green Acres so that they can authorize it under our open space plan that was adopted, and the program that we're participating in. It is practically an automatic approval, because we're kind of pre-approved under this plan instead of the older and kind of difficult system of applying competitively on an annual basis, which is what some other towns do. So we've escaped that so that we can actually, you know, move a little bit more swiftly, but it's been working on this for about a year already. So.
Maybe a little more, Peter.
I think, yeah, well, we identified it, and then we did a single approval appraisal without, so we wouldn't have to spend all the money on a second appraisal. We're required to have 2 appraisals. And of course, we ended up with the neighbor, with the sellers, to take something a little bit less than even the appraisals would justify.
Are we talking about this now, or?
Yeah, why don't we, Peter really cleared up, I think, most of the questions that Mrs. McFadden could address.
I
Since we had one person that asked
Yeah, why don't we?
Sure, go ahead.
3 questions, maybe that we could just make sure that they're satisfied with the information.
I have more now.
Sir, why don't you step forward then and address your questions?
Well, why is it necessary? Yeah, well, there are a few things. More forward than this? I guess the idea
Come
that.
forward so we can hear your microphone.
And people that, you know, tapes and so on online.
To me, it's interesting that we would choose to purchase land with no idea about what we're going to do with it.
That's not exactly correct.
Okay.
There's a perception of that, and it's been floated around, I hear, through the rumor mill, but that's not exactly correct. And so again, I did explain why there are certain reasons why you can't, because it just was a transaction, and anybody that has business or transaction experience, I don't know what you've done in your past, you would know that you don't do that.
So, makes sense. So, so the next question I have is, okay, great. we wind up with this land as a town. And what then are the restrictions now within which the town must operate insofar as the use of that land is concerned?
That's a very good question. Can I do one at a time?
Okay, sure. Because I haven't read the zoning ordinance that describes the limited uses that you can put land to in that zoning area. So I haven't read that.
I will defer to the attorney on that one, but you're up to two questions now. That there is no restriction because it would be government-owned land, and I believe that Jack escapes that kind of.
We wouldn't need a variance for.
Wouldn't need a variance for that
Not
once,
open space, no.
once the government owns it. Okay, thank you. That's a direct.
And you have to remember, the planning board did adopt our open space plan as well. The state is also endorsed it. So, in terms of restrictions, yes. The borough has complete control of who may use it, when they may use it, and so on and so forth. As with the fields and things like that, if there are fees involved, we could have a two-tiered system for fees, residents versus non-residents. And in terms of monitoring and regulating that very, very tightly, there's often been rogue arguments that anybody can come in and use it because it was funded with state monies, and that is actually not something that actually happens or can really happen. Yeah, the town would regulate it, and if outsiders want it and it's available, or and meets certain requirements or whatever it may be, it's not scheduled or whatever is going on, we can make it available, but we're not necessarily required to make it available.
So the latitude is wide once the town owns it, it sounds like.
It's completely under the town's control, yes.
Without any apparent restrictions.
But actually, in this case, the ordinance does provide, among the primary intended uses are local, municipal, public buildings and uses. So it's actually permitted by the ordinance, even if we were subject to it.
You can put a municipal building up there?
No, not on that particular land.
That's what he just said.
Well,
I didn't hear him.
let me clarify.
Let Jack clarify.
We can't put a public building on property that's acquired with open space trust fund money or the Green Acres money.
Right.
But under the zoning, you could in the R1 zone.
That's the zoning.
I'm not gonna put down all of it.
We're not allowed to maintain or save buildings. Buildings have to basically be demolished on any open space that's acquired, unless it meets certain very, very specific requirements. One, I guess, is historic is accepted, and two is if there is a auxiliary building for storage of equipment or supplies or, I guess, bathrooms, those things would be permitted. But generally, any kind of house cannot be, or structure is not allowed to be there. There is on this one, the house will be demolished, and there is a auxiliary shed that's been used in the past for, I guess, lawn equipment and things like that. That would meet the requirements of the our ability to keep it if we had a purpose for it. But if it isn't part of the plans and the use of the area, that even that would have to go, I guess.
One other point, since the money since the property is being acquired with Green Acres funds, if the town wanted to change the use from passive open space to a ball field, for instance, they'd have to get Green Acres approval, there'd be public hearings. So it just can't be done arbitrarily by the borough.
Yeah, and that's something that a lot of people don't know.
So you can't put a retractable dome stadium up there?
Well, you can't put a building to begin with, number one.
What about subsurface things like septic tanks and oil tanks? You've done tank sweeps on the property and sort of walk in environmental liability?
Like that's all been worked out in the contract. And
honestly, one of my, I love open space, believe me, but the price on this is nowhere near reality.
Well, then you need to
because look, right here, it's like in December of 2017, 10 acres, rolling manicured, sold for $700,000.
You need to speak with the appraisers.
Well, these guys, they're so far off the mark. I can't get on board with that.
Well, we're way below the appraisals.
the appraisals are not even close to reality.
We're way below
The
the
market is
appraisals.
700 to, there's 10 acres for sale around the corner for 950, been there for 2 years.
Are
That's
you
the
an
market.
expert,
I'm
John?
sorry, man.
Seriously, are you an expert?
All right, Peter.
Yeah, I am, I could just look at this is what
Are
I
you a
am.
licensed expert?
Thank you,
A
Peter.
closed sale, that's realistic.
You're entitled to your opinion, of course.
So just to clarify, the price that we've negotiated is below both appraisals.
Correct.
And it's significantly, I think, below one of the two appraisals.
Yes, it's
So like
significantly below
hundreds
one
of
and
thousands, like more than
substantially below.
$100,000 below?
Yes. And
And
basically,
additionally, I just want to clarify also, Green Acres is going to pay for 500,000 of
more.
this and potentially more in the future because we have access to additional grant monies based on the total purchase price and costs of this property.
I sent a note
For
to
future
Jack that
Green Acres money.
the ordinance to apply for 500 is probably, I believe, is an error because we can apply for 50% reimbursement, which is a higher number than we have banked today. The release of funds for 2018 will be coming up in a couple of months, and our consultant tells us we should probably expect in the neighborhood of $250,000 to refill that portion from Green Acres. However, let's assume we spent, it was a $2 million property and we spent $1 million, we needed $1 million in Green Acres. As the money was released, once we're approved, that would come to us and be reimbursed. So we'll be reimbursed for 50% of the purchase price, as well as 50% of the, what's called soft costs, which has to do with the demolition of the building, legal expenses, and engineering, any kind of remediation, things like that. We're also entitled to 50%. You know, there's something that rules on how that works. So basically, assuming no match from or grant from Somerset County, it costs the taxpayers 50 cents on the dollar. If Somerset County comes through, and we did request for several $100,000 from them, it could end up being close to, well, basically a lot less. Anywhere between, you know, $500,000 and, you know, $25. So, in terms of the cost of the taxpayer and our ability to leverage this fund, which we had not had in this town for a long, long time because we didn't have an effective open space plan, we would have had to spend dollar for dollar before this plan was approved. We're now down to the point where we can leverage it, and it gives us twice the purchasing power to preserve some of the rural qualities that I think many of us enjoy, and some of the peace and quiet that many of us enjoy. And that's what the plan is about, and as a state policy, this has been in place for many, many decades. That's it.
Should we be looking more downtown as opposed to the mountain?
Downtown certainly has come up a lot in the recent survey. It's been talked about, I know, in the Open Space Committee. I'm personally a fan of pocket parks. I've seen how great they are bringing communities together in parts of California. But you need to have a suitable space. Hopefully the planning board would have some input on this. And you also have to have a parcel that would qualify as far as Green Acres is concerned for any reimbursement.
And the downtown property you'd be losing a lot more revenue in tax revenue.
Well, it depends on the type of property, but yeah, whether it's residential or commercial, sure.
All right, yeah. Thank you, Peter.
Lloyd?
Hi, Lloyd Sims, 291 Mendham Road. I guess my question is, how do we come up with this property? Did the owner come to you, or did you search out this piece of property? I don't know who.
We regularly search out properties because people don't currently approach the town. In fact, some realtors are very much afraid of it, and I guess we have a long history in our town of starting things and then quitting, and people really don't want to negotiate it.
So the owner came to you?
No, we sought them out.
You sought out the owner?
Absolutely.
And that piece of property specifically?
We always look, I look through listings all the time to see if there's anything that's suitable.
So what made you look at that listing, I guess, is my question.
That's what open space is.
Basically, if you look at the open
to-
space inventory, they have a number of properties on their inventory. And they'll just update them randomly, so, it's
And we
not
also
like,
approach people, I'm sorry.
it's not like anybody, is looking to buy one piece of property, but the Open Space Committee has a number of parcels, which I know they've recommended over the past 10 years.
Is there a public list of those parcels that we're
Yes, there
interested
is.
in?
It's on the Open Space Committee.
And this was one of them?
Yes. I don't know if this was one or not, but it just came up as a purchase, and it's in a public hearing right now, so.
Okay, so it was on the prior list of properties
No,
that
no,
were
no.
interested in?
Right.
Okay.
Based on
The-
size.
The list just continued. You're saying it's on a prior list. I didn't say it was on a prior list.
Okay.
It's on the last open space plan,
Which was from when?
2 years ago.
Okay.
You own it,
1.2
right?
million the owner's getting, right?
Huh?
1.2 million.
No.
They're not, the owner's not getting 1.2 million?
It's a little bit over $1 million.
Okay, well over $1 million. So that's pretty much market value for that property, correct?
Nope.
No.
We're certified appraisals, which are required by state law.
Okay.
And it's a very high-level appraisal. It's not some realtor or somebody going around saying, I think it's worth this. They have to meet certain very stringent rules. It's like you're doing for estate taxes or something else. I don't think it quite meets that level, but it's a pretty high-level appraisal. So it's a legally valid, court-recognized document.
And I respectfully disagree with the analysis. The 1.2, I mean, if you look at the last closed sale and what's listed, we're way off the market. It's all tax money at the end of the day. And it's, I mean, I love open space, you know, more than most. I know some of my friends, but this is just extraordinarily overpriced for us, in my opinion. And we gotta tear down the house, and we gotta make it safe, and we gotta, you know,
And I'm for
decommission all
open
this
space as
stuff.
well too, but we should be looking at good deals. To me, this doesn't look like a good deal. It looks
just
like we're
can't get
getting
along with the
a
price.
property owner out of their house, you know, and out of their piece of real estate. You're paying market value, close to market value for it.
And that's why we struck a lower price than they would have otherwise gone for, because they had.
How much lower than market value?
Lower than market
It's in
value?
Yeah.
Lower than the appraised value.
It's not in what I have.
1.4 million.
Was
is
the market
one of
value?
One of
One of
the
the
appraisals.
appraisals.
Okay.
The other one is 1.251.
Okay, and they're getting 1.2.
Nope.
No, they're getting
The one
just
point
over $1
two
million.
in
You have to
comprehensive-
still
The last closed transaction,
I know
3 months ago,
facts are
for
really
similar
complicated.
property,
for some people these days,
$700,000.
But the facts are, the negotiated price, I believe, is $1 million. Oh,
Well, I'm looking what was in the
About $1 million.
public.
You have to
Excuse me.
understand, that is
Peter.
also the soft costs. There are other costs involved, there's legal fees, there's surveys, we get reimbursed for those things too.
That
I
should
did
be all
this-
put in here so
All
I
right,
can see that as
gentlemen,
well.
you
That's
address
up to
the
you.
council.
Thank you.
That's up
We're
to
not
our
gonna
attorney
get
and the
into a
council.
debate in the audience here.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, thank you.
On the tax rolls, that property is being assessed and we're paying getting taxes on it of $750,000. So it's being assessed at $750,000.
Which is close to what they just closed at, another property.
Is that Zillow?
It's,
This is off the MLS.
you can pass this around if you'd like. It's not Zillow. If you go downstairs,
Zillow.
that's one of them, Christine.
Well, I'm just saying that there's a legitimate database of open spaces that, and it's available to the public.
Christine, but you could walk downstairs to our tax book and we're getting taxes based on assessed value for that property of $700 and I think $6,000.
And that's some whatever arm's length transactions. This property I'm
Right,
talking
so,
about here,
like, do you know what your property
So we're-
is assessed?
All right.
Yeah, Judge.
it is 11 acres.
John. Let one person speak at a time. Lloyd, you have
So
the
it's
floor.
assessed at $706,000. So why we're paying anything more than that is beyond me. Or we haven't been taxing them enough.
Which is possible.
Which
So
is-
then we should be looking at a back
Which is either way possible, yes.
We do have two
Good.
certified appraisals. I mean, I
That's
gotta
what's
believe
scary.
they're not just
But they
pulling these
don't
numbers out of the
bear
air.
out the last arm's length transaction.
John,
Yes.
one person speaks at a time. Tom, speak.
So it seems that we should at least put some acknowledgement that just a personal opinion that it's not worth this property has to be weighed against the professional opinions that we've gone out and paid for as well.
I agree, but I don't know how we're assessing a property at $700,000.
We didn't assess it, the professional
No, the town,
appraisers did.
the town has it assessed.
That's a different question.
It's a valid point, though. It's a very valid point, Mr. Sims.
Okay.
John, you have anything?
Yeah, but the
Go ahead.
property I'm referencing is like 330 Mendham Road. On December 13th, it closed at $700,000. It's 11.14 acres, rolling manicure lawns. The house is gone. It was demolished. It's been sold kind of like we have, so we have a house on it. And it's, I mean, you know, I go by what the last arm's length transaction was. That kind of sets your market. And if you look at other open, and there's one other one that's around the corner, 10 acres, it's offered at $950 for 2 years now. So, you know, mark to market, it's kind of like we're off the market, I think.
And-
I mean, I love open space, but respectfully, I have to disagree with the pricing here.
I I'd like to add that there are a lot of things to consider in addition to what it is, and that is what it's adjacent to. And there are also conservation ratings given to each property, if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to, I mean, essentially this is being purchased for conservation, right? Conservation of the environment. One of the main goals of the Open Space Committee. It's not all about fields and recreation, okay? So conserving resources, environmental resources. This particular property has a very high conservation rating because it's a great water recharge spot. So if you live on the mountain, you know that there are some issues that have come up in the past where water recharge is very important. So this will address part of that issue because now we're conserving open space that is never going to have an overdeveloped piece of land on it. It's also adjacent to other potentially
I have no problem with the idea of
parts the
open space in general.
Right. So
I
it's
just-
not necessarily something that's going to be a field.
I'm not talking about that at all, yeah.
Okay, so, and then the other part of this is that when we envisioned this, and we've talked about this in closed session, which you can't really talk about it in public up until this point because of the nature of the transaction. So essentially you don't want to ruin it by bringing it out before it's actually in this stage of the game. So in closed session when we talked about this, I think most of us envisioned something like a Natarar, which is just plain and simple. You walk around, you enjoy the beautiful scenery, you look at birds, you enjoy nature. I think there's a water on this property, and if any of you have ever walked it or been on it,
I don't believe there's water, there's a pool.
it's amazing. And it's just, it's one of those things that, for me, I think there are many residents in our downtown who could benefit from some of that scenic, picturesque area that don't have that in their backyard. So to me, preserving something like that on the mountain is a great idea, not only for generations to come, but also for the residents who live up there. It's, you know, just there
Listen, I'm all for preserving property.
enjoyment of nature.
But at the right cost, I guess, at the end of the day is what makes sense.
Well, we could have 2 appraisals, and I mean, if necessary, we could explore an option of getting another one if you, I mean, I don't know if that's something we
Yeah,
could-
and I would look at other properties
But
that you
that's
could,
all cost, you know, like each appraisal costs money.
well, we could look at our own appraisal downstairs. That doesn't cost anything.
Right, and then I think there are many houses in this town, and all towns all over New Jersey that are not appraised properly, and that does, you know, that's
This is
because
way
they
off,
haven't-
though.
This has only
Yeah.
turned over twice in its entire life. There will
And
be
you're gonna set a
things-
precedent where homeowners are gonna come and wanna get bailed out of their house. Because if
Okay,
you're getting
yeah.
market value for your house and property, I'm next in line.
Well, then they have to find a
You
buyer.
know, there's a
Yeah,
process.
I don't know, open space, I might get my house on there.
You know, there is a
May want to
process.
inflate your property value.
Yes. So, second thing is, I think what we also feel to realize is that's a nice piece of property, large acre, it's a good rateable. Someone comes in, buys, puts a house up there, we got $40,000 in taxable
And that's what we
revenue.
don't want.
We don't want that?
We have enough of that. Okay.
Well, okay, but yet we're increasing our budget and we're going further in debt, so, I mean, and we don't have many rateables in town to begin with, so I think you have a nice piece of property that creates a rateable. You know, getting rid of that is not always the best idea. Usually open space, I find, is some of the places that are low-lying areas where you can't develop it, and then you do buy it for less, and it makes more sense.
Why would you want to buy land that's not going to get developed?
For open space.
But why would you buy it? Nobody can build on it.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
for the
open
water that
space
Christine's
forever.
talking about.
I mean, you want it to be enjoyable.
You can't build on
And
it.
it's definitely a process that,
So we want the open space to be buildable?
no, we want the open
Okay.
space to be enjoyable, and. we
Mr.
want-
Mayor, is there a time limit on a person?
We're engaged in conversation now, so there's no time limit once you're engaged in conversation,
okay. I
but the
thought there were-
council's
I thought
also
it was a question and
making, the
answer.
council's
It's nice that you
also-
want to cut me off, though.
The council's also making comments here, so
Well, it seems
it
like
would
your
be
rhetorical
unfair
questions
to,
are
it would be unfair to limit Mr. Sims on his time.
Yes, it's probably looking for
I think that's all I have anyways.
That's it?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
I opened up the clock. Come on.
So I noticed that
Another 5 minutes, come on.
I noticed that the chair of the Open Space Committee has come now, and I think that there was there may be some opportunity for the chair to kind of address some of these concerns. Is that?
Yeah, one of the things I want to say is,
Mrs. McFadden, step forward and speak into the microphone.
one of the things is such an important piece of property, the Green Acres thought it was important. We're not paying all that money. They are giving us $500,000 towards it. The county is looking into giving us money towards it. We might be able to buy this piece of property for about $400,000 or $300,000.
But if you're paying market value using state resources at the end of the day, it's not good for our state either.
No, not really, because it was the two independent appraisers came up with this valuation.
I'd like to just clarify a point because it keeps coming up. The market value and the appraised value, would you say are the same thing or not?
They're fairly close.
Would an appraisal is supposed to be what the market value of that property is, not my opinion is it's a certain amount. So we had two professional appraisals at above our purchase price. So I think continually stating that we're paying market price or paying above market price
It's not true.
it doesn't seem to be substantiated by the facts.
It does. Well,
I understand that your opinion and
This was closed 3 months ago. $300,000.
that I believe is.
Let's go back text it if what you believe is the right.
All right, folks.
Come on, guys. You don't have the floor right now.
One person speaks at a time.
So I just want to clarify that we do have two appraisals at a value above what the purchase price is.
And it's a beautiful piece of property. It can be used for we can even put a dog park up there, you know?
And
There's
it's
so
a
many
matter of
things that can
opinion,
be done.
and we are exchanging
We can put
opinions
trails
here.
out.
Mr. Orza, please stop disrupting the meeting, or we will have you removed. Thank you.
You know, we're putting trails on other properties. We were planning on putting trails on that one. There's many uses for it once we get the property. And I understand what you're saying about what you think the town should be doing, but that's totally different from this. You know, maybe the town should go out and appraise everybody's, but I'm paying so much tax now, I would rather not do that.
It'll be subject to a vote at the end of this evening, so,
Okay.
but thank you.
Thank you.
Pat, thank you. Sir?
So I've been listening to what a lot of
Just
people
say
have
your
been
name
saying.
for the record, for the clerk.
My name is John Kane. I live at 40 Mountaintop Road.
Yes, sir.
I've listened to a lot of what other people are saying, and I'm a little bit confused. The resolution here says that we are appropriating $1.2 million to fund the purchase of 20 Dryden Road for open space and recreation. One thing I've heard is we're not buying it for 1.2, we're buying it for $1 million. So why are we appropriating 1.2 million to purchase 20 Dryden Road?
Jack, did you want to answer that?
This ordinance is just appropriating the money, it's actually not authorizing the purchase. So the recommendation of the Open Space Advisory Committee and the New Jersey Land Conservancy who negotiated this purchase, they suggested extra money being there for soft costs.
Okay, so that's, I guess, one question. The other one is, and you referenced this a little bit earlier, the ordinance that this is being purchased under provides for two specific uses under the term recreation. One is for resource-based, which seems to be the intent. The other is for facilities-based, which seems to be not the intent. I currently serve and was appointed by the governor to a state agency, and I serve in the capacity of a board, same as you guys. You guys are fiduciaries. You're fiduciaries for our money, because that's where it comes from. I would think it would be appropriate, since the notice of this and the resolution of this is not specific in terms of which class of recreation the property is intended. So, as a taxpayer, I have a hard time with you guys passing this resolution as it's currently worded, since it's not specific. It's a blank check. You can do whatever you want with it once you appropriate the money. So I would respectfully suggest that the resolution be amended to state the specific purpose for which it's intended.
So I have a question then, just for clarifying. is it a blank check that we can do whatever we want with the property, Jack, or is there?
It's a blank check to the extent that for open space and recreational purposes, yes. So you could add.
He seemed to be concerned about the phrase about the facilities-based.
Well, facilities is a broad term. I mean, that could be a park bench kind of thing. But you could add limiting language saying it can only be used for open space recreational purposes, or passive recreational purposes.
Okay.
You know, that could be added.
Okay.
And as I say, this was just to appropriate the money, so it's pretty general.
Right.
But I would certainly have no objection if you wanted to add qualifying language to it.
Okay, because I think that's also important because as I sat here and listened to some of the comments from over here, this appears to be step one in a long-term plan. A 10-acre lot by itself doesn't do much for anybody, especially since it's already zoned for 10 acres and in essence protected. No one can put anything else on there except for one dwelling, and the zoning restricts it. So again, we're kind of purchasing land to protect it, right?
Right.
To stop people from doing other stuff there. The zoning and the ordinance already protects it for that. So this is part of a long-term plan that obviously is going to involve the acquisition of additional pieces of property and therefore putting presumably the same types of use, same types of restrictions on it. I did come prepared tonight to talk about other uses that there are rumors floating around in terms of what it could be used for. And I would just like to share, I guess, a couple of points on that is the mountain does represent a significant tax base for this town. And in the economy that we're in, with the new tax laws that have come out from Washington and everything else, the last thing I would think the town can handle is a reduction in its revenues. So, as the gentleman talked about before, taking it out of ratables is presumably something that you are going to give careful consideration to. Taking other pieces of property around that are only going to make the situation potentially worse. And I don't know how you're going to replace those revenues. Maybe you're going to increase my tax rates. I'm not quite sure. But obviously that wouldn't help my property values either. The last thought, and Mr. Donahue has talked about this a lot tonight, is appraisals are one thing. And I'll share with you, I refinanced my house recently to pay for my daughter's wedding. And in doing so, I learned that my property values have fallen by over $1 million. Okay? This property has been there for a long time. We've heard that tonight. If he wanted to sell it at the appraised value, he should do that. Otherwise, as a prudent businessman, he's not making a great deal by selling it for $400,000 under the appraised value. I would suggest if he could sell it for $400,000 above, or sell it at the 1.2 to 1.4 million, he would have done it. As we sit here today, I know where property values are going on the mountain, and I would suggest that he probably hasn't been able to sell it for that, so selling it through Green Acres is his best alternative. He wants an exit strategy. And I am a proponent and supporter of Green Acres, but as Mr. Donahue has said earlier, we shouldn't as a town be fooled into paying an inflated value just to provide someone with an exit to a problem. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Pat?
Pat Rye, 66 Anderson Hill Road. I just want to commend you on the thought of purchasing this property. We've put money into Green Acres and open spaces for so many years. Every time properties come up, there are big kerfuffles about should we buy this? Is this a swamp? Is this a good deal? Is this a bad deal? The people behind you have put a lot of thought into the purchase of this. This is not some snap decision. People are throwing around terms like we're providing an exit strategy for someone. He did not come to the town. The town, in essence, went to him, but after thoughtful consideration about what this particular property would add to the open space value of this town. I'd hate to see the over a year that went into the contemplation of this get the kibosh at the last minute, because what's going to happen is nobody will deal with this town when it comes to open space monies if after a year of thoughtful, considered planning, this all goes poof. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Anyone else?
I'll take the last 30 seconds.
There you go. I'm out of time. Let's go.
The only other comment I'd like to make is I think we have, I'm not sure if it's Peters Track or whatever that's between Claremont and
Yes, it's
Anderson.
Peters
Is that
Track,
Peters?
yeah.
So we have that open space and we can't even use it. You know, I tried parking on a road there and there's no parking to hike the trail.
Young's
We
Road,
have,
yeah.
we have no, you know, we're buying open space, but we're not able to use it. So until we start using open space, it's tough to let me say, hey, let's buy more open space.
We didn't buy that, it was donated to the town.
Donated, but still it's open space that we're not
We
using.
didn't buy it.
No, okay, so we didn't buy it, but
And
it's
we
open
do have-
space.
We do have some plans for it, but we just have to get access to it. That's gonna be the next purchase, so.
And I think those plans have been in the making for
Quite a
quite a
while.
long time.
About 25 years, probably.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lloyd.
May I ask one last?
Yes, sir.
Very quick one. The open space folks, Green Egg, they do a wonderful, wonderful job, for sure.
Just state your name for the record for the
Chris
clerk.
Kersey, 250 Post Cunard.
Thank you.
But I think by virtue of the fact that there's no variance involved here, the residents in that area have become aware of this only at the very last minute. Nobody knew about this, notwithstanding having been worked on for a long time. And so, just as a general matter, when things like a NADAR type arrangement, well, when I think of NADAR, it's wonderful, with parking lots, with lots of cars, with lots of dogs, with lots of various things. And so, I think just as a general matter, residents of that area need to be heard. And as of now, there are like 3 of us who know about it, which is our fault, admittedly. But it's just lucky that we all heard about it within the last 3 days.
And our fault also, and we appreciate you being here this evening to let us know how we can be better.
Well, I've now understood why, because there's no variance required, nor will there be, so it's not the 200, whatever the rules are, where we got notified before when there was a variance. So if there's another opportunity for residents, even who are contiguous to that area, who will be deeply interested in this, that would be a wonderful thing. And I'll add lastly that I lived on that property for about 4 years, so, and it is wonderful.
Thank you very much, sir.
Now, hold on,
Anyone,
Kevin,
Jeff?
1 second. I said I was gonna delay further discussions until Pat showed up.
Sure.
But we'll cancel that. Does anybody else have comment?
How are you? Good. How you doing? Good.
Which street, Ben?
Mine Brook Road.
And thank you for volunteering.
Yeah,
I
no
got a
problem.
couple committees this year, so.
I just wanted to say I think it's a good thing to preserve Bernardsville. I think these historic areas, you know, that is a historic area from the Dryden Estates, the original stables. It's a good part of Bernardsville that probably not too many people know about. We are in an equestrian centered area. You think Jockey Hollow and all the areas up on the mountain also. This is a great piece of land that can connect a lot of Bernardsville together for hiking trails. You know, you also said, you know, why would you want to have something downtown? Well, we have lots of parks and things downtown. A lot of people downtown like to come up to the mountain, enjoy the peace and quiet up there also. It's a great piece of property for Bernardsville to definitely own. Yeah, that's about it. I think a lot of people downtown could start venturing up the mountain and really enjoy that area.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Rosa?
You know, I've just listened to you people, and I have, and with John, I have an agreement with you, and it's funny, when I moved to town here, my taxes went up almost 50%. So I went to the tax assessor's office, I said, why did the valuation of my property go up? So she said, what'd you pay for it? So I told her, and she says, well, that's what it's worth. Not what it was appraised at with them. So in this situation, it doesn't matter what appraisals you get. Who cares? It's what it's worth. So if this property has been on the market for years at whatever price, and there are no takers, it's not worth very much. I mean, some people, and matter of fact, I'll tell you what I've done. I've gotten appraisals done on many different types of properties in the past. And depending on what I wanted the number to, you get the right appraiser. If you know some guy's a high appraiser, you bring him in. If you want a low number, you know some guy's a low appraiser, you bring them in. So the true value of any property here is what someone is willing to pay for it. And from what we've heard tonight, our own tax assessor, our own tax appraiser, Ed, great guy. And if you try to go to tax court where you try to go to, get your property reevaluated, be careful, because it could. And he comes in and says it's worth 8 acres, is worth 700, and the 8 acres plus the 2 that the house is on is worth $760-something odd thousand. So how we go from 760, could he be that far off, to $1.4 million or $1.2 million? And the soft cost, we talked about before, we kept saying it's $1 million property, but thank God you asked it, John, about it. What's the $200,000 about? And it's about soft costs, about filling in the pool, finding out there's tanks, knocking down the house. So where we come up with this kind of money is beyond me. But I don't think I don't think there's been that much. If you get 2 appraisals done, fine. But let's find out what it's really worth. Has it been on the market? Do you guys know if it's been on the market? Has there been any bids on it? Have there been any offers made? Does anyone know?
Yes.
And was it on the market?
Yeah.
For how many years?
It was on the market for $200,000, if I remember correctly, more than what we struck the price for.
It was on, so the seller set the price at $200,000 more than the $1 million you're buying it for.
Yes.
And were there any bids?
There had been some failed purchases, yes.
Okay, was that because of failed purchases because of the land itself, or because maybe their price, their bid was at $700,000?
Well, that we're not going to know.
That wasn't an agreed to contract. The contract was agreed to, is what I'm trying to say. So they came to contract terms. The sale had been, as I understand it, it's secondhand, it had been sold, and transactions fail all the time. People can't get financing. Something happened they change their mind.
So we really have no concrete evidence that there was ever, okay.
We know.
Yes. There's no concrete evidence.
We know what the market was.
Concrete evidence.
And we also know that appraisals of this type are recognized in court, and that a bank appraisal always comes in less because the bank does that to protect themselves. Yeah, but we're required under law to use a certain type of appraisal.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that you guys. Well, I'm addressing. Ready? I'm addressing you, not him.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay. If you're going to vote tonight on it, please do. But remember, this is taxpayer money, and John brought up the word fiduciary. And the fact is, if this property is worth $700,000 and you're going to pay $1.2 million for it, that's a problem. That's a problem. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Rossi. Thank you. Sir?
One more comment.
How you doing tonight?
Hi,
Just say your name for the record for the
Sal
clerk.
Giordano, 91 Post
Yes,
Lane. Grew up here in Bernardsville. Family moved here over 50 years ago, so that makes me a newcomer. It's funny. I guess it's all about perspective. We live up on the mountain, but my wife and I go walking at the high school on the track. And by the way, it did get torn up a little bit. I didn't notice the field, the turf field, but the track, it's got divots in it from the storm. But what I wanted to say was this, we're in a situation in this country where governments in general are driving the people into the ground. Okay, we're spending money that the people don't have. You see it at the federal level, the county level, the state level, the municipal level. The assessments have dropped in this town. The property values have dropped. The land values have dropped, and yet we continue to spend money. I'm a member of the Washington Association, which is the Ford Mansion and Jockey Hollow National Park. The visitor counts year in and year out are dropping because we're losing our heritage in this country. It's a beautiful park. I'm not sure, the New Jersey Brigade area might even be in Bernardsville. And if it's not in Bernardsville, it's right on the edge.
Mendham. It's right on the edge off of Hardscrabble. You know, a drive from the center of town up to the mountain or a drive to Jockey Hollow, it's about the same distance. And I would suggest that, you know, rather than spend money that the people don't have, we promote the beautiful natural resource at Jockey Hollow. There's 26 miles of trails up there. There's infinite open space. We don't need to spend money we don't have. And by the way, you know, the open fund money, it's a great idea. I'm not, you know, arguing that, but it's state money, it's county money, it's the people's money. So, you know, we're getting a deal, but we're spending someone else's money, right?
Thank you, Mr. Giordano. Anyone else? Anyone else? Peter, would you like to say something else? Sure.
Yeah. Certainly the neighbors, we wish we would have talked to you, couldn't talk to you earlier, but as fiduciaries for this kind of transaction, having done that, could have upset the whole apple cart and made things worse. From my past experience in open space, absolutely engaged the town and the neighbors especially, get their input once the deal had been negotiated, because that was critically important. And the first parcel I was involved with, the neighboring town sued to prevent anything being done to it, but the land was preserved. But definitely, I think we've been trying to be very conscientious of the neighbors' input and concerns when we consider this property to begin with. And along that line, I would suggest, if someone could amend it tonight, is that it be restricted for passive use or and/or preservation, conservation, because that is a perhaps I don't think anybody intended to do anything else, and I think it'd be great to have that in this, because as our council said before, attorney said before, that to change use afterwards, it has to be approved. It has to go through resolution, public hearings, and it has to also then subsequently be approved by Green Acres. So thank you for that comment. It's very good.
Thank you, Peter. Anyone else?
Can I make
yes, Mr. Giordano, sure.
Can I do it from here?
You sure can. Okay. We know who you are.
By the way, the National Park Service recently voted within the last couple of months, Jockey Hollow is now free to the public. So you don't have to pay to get into it, where before there was a fee. So I think that's important too. It's a great resource. Go use it.
Thank you, Mr. Giordano. Mary?
Mary Jane Canos, Autumn Hill Drive. I just want to say, that this is not additional tax money. I don't know if people realize that from the Open Space Committee. We have a $7 million trust that you have paid into. I don't know how long ago that was approved to donate money, to put aside money into this special fund. So it's not, and at any point, we can stop collecting that tax, which is a decision that the council can make. But right now, there's $7 million there. And actually, we've been criticized for not spending it by a lot of people. So I think we were excited that this was the first property that we can actually preserve. But it is already set aside. It's already been collected. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Council members? Any other comments?
So the master plan of our town talks about preserving open space as one of the goals of the master plan. That's correct?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So, and the Open Space Committee is tasked with finding properties like this, and that's the fund was created to acquire open space. So this is part of the master plan of the town.
Yes.
Anyone else, Christine? Anyone else? John? Anything? Anyone else?
I have a question for Jack.
Yes.
So if we were going to amend the language, would we do that tonight, or we have to do it in the next session?
You can do it by motion tonight to amend the language and then continue the public hearing on the ordinance as amended. Anthony would have to publish notice of the amendment prior to the next meeting, and then the public hearing would continue at the April 11th meeting or 9th meeting. And then you have the opportunity to vote.
Is it a clarification and not a material change, and that is allowed to be made in this session?
I think it's a material change because
Because it would be restrictive?
It is a material change, you're saying?
In my opinion. But we're talking about 2 weeks. And it's not-
All right, so we'll go to the next meeting if we want to amend language, if you have a recommendation, Mr. O'Day.
I have another question for the Open Space Committee. Is there a deadline that we're working on? Is there some other outside contract language or something
I'll
that?
have to talk to Aaron to give you a definite answer on that.
Land Conservancy.
The contract itself is not signed yet. Because first of all, this had to be passed, and then you had to authorize the execution of the contract. I don't believe I don't think 2 weeks will affect anything.
So we're okay going into an April meeting with this? With an amendment to the language, if you have recommendations.
I think, Mayor,
Yes,
since
Peter.
there are different people,
Hey, Skip, what's the problem? You're making all kinds of gestures here, what's the problem?
No, I thought you were in a closed session.
Is there a problem?
He's asking me a question, Jeff. The question is, the problem is this, that you guys are discussing myself, and you're not supposed to get any more public comment. That was closed. You
No,
said it.
I
heard
didn't
you.
close. I asked if there was any other public comment.
And you said there weren't any.
And you're
You went
sitting
on
there
and
all
down.
animated doing your
Okay.
own show.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah, right.
sure.
Peter, thank you. Excuse me, people. Excuse me. I apologize.
I can't specifically say that there would be an issue. There's certainly potential complications since there are other committees considering this property and providing grants to us. And perhaps if we stall, that may not send the right message since the town unfortunately does have a history of delaying and not completing some of these things in the past. So, yeah, it may be absolutely nothing. And it would certainly pain me to suggest you go forward without the restrictions, because I think out of deference to the neighbors, and also considering this has always been the desire and the discussions and the purpose, and as well as a restriction in terms of being passive, it was presented to both Somerset County and which is another official document. I mean, that is the express intention all along. You know, it's a very unfortunate oversight. However, I guess we were not included earlier on the language of this. And if the council says we can't make that change now, then you have to decide whether you want to, you know, make the change later. It's up to you.
Sir, yeah, I think you were up first and you're second, okay? I'll defer here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe to correct the statement, council has advised you that you have 2 choices.
Okay.
You can amend it tonight, as has been suggested by me and I think agreed and supported by the committee, which can be done, or it can be postponed for 2 weeks. I personally, as a speaker and a resident here, have no objection to you amending it tonight. I think that puts it behind you and gives you the pathway that you need to move forward should anything be required in the next 2 weeks. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
A quick question. So, with these procedural matters in play, will the public, meaning mostly probably people who are directly going to be affected by this, have another opportunity to speak? Yes. Yeah, regardless of whether the language is changed tonight or at the next meeting, there will be another opportunity for the public to weigh in? Is that correct?
Well, Jack, are we adopting this published tonight, or are we going to carry this
Well, actually, you probably have 4 options.
as amended?
I'm not suggesting any. One is to adopt it as introduced, the way it is tonight. 2, you could just continue the public hearing until the April 9 meeting to give more residents the opportunity to be heard. The third is that you could amend tonight by motion and then continue the public hearing on the ordinance as amended till the next meeting. And I guess your 4th option would be just to vote down the ordinance. So those are your 4 procedural options.
So Jack, if we take option 3, there's only one more public hearing?
There'd be nothing to prevent you from continuing the public hearing again.
Okay.
But in my opinion, if you amend it as suggested, which I think is a legitimate amendment, that you should carry, especially in light of the public input, that it should be considered a substantial amendment, and it should be a continuing public hearing at the next meeting. But if in fact you aren't ready to act that night on the ordinance as amended, you could continue the public
clarification, the question was, will there be other input sessions? Jack, will there not be, because we have to adopt the contract later, assuming everything's approved? And then we'd also have other meetings besides, where there would be public discussion on this item. Is that not correct? So this isn't exactly like the last chance, no matter what happens.
Well, that's correct, but I think this would limit the use more clearly in the form of an ordinance.
Yes, and that would be better, yes.
The resolution approving the contract, even if you put it there, that may not bind future councils to the same extent as ordinances.
Thank you, Jack.
Uh,
All right, so council members, yes.
Peter, with a purchase price a little over $1 million, soft cost, demo, you're right around 1.2, right?
I think we figure that the soft cost and demolition and any remediation would probably come in, 100 would be on the high side. So that would be, put it roughly $1,150,000, including the soft cost, total acquisition cost.
So 1150.
Total, yeah. And I think the ordinance, as we've always done in the past, is you draw it so there's a little bit of wiggle room, just in case something goes wrong.
How much are you looking to have from other sources to reimburse 1.2? Let's call it 1.2. Because we have this open space plan, everything is virtually pre-approved, we would get 50% of the purchase price, plus half of the allowable soft costs, which includes the surveys, some of the demolition, all these things. And I don't think there's anything that I've heard of that would be outside a reimbursable cost. There is a cap on it, and I believe that is 10% of the purchase price of the property, which would put us well over $100,000. So, then as far as the other,
Jeff.
then we also asked Somerset County for a match of I don't remember the exact amount, but it was, I believe it was $500,000. I don't expect $500,000 from them, but anything we get is something we hadn't anticipated earlier. And when we described the passive uses that I talked about tonight, because they came back with clarification of what our intentions were, it sounded as though they were pretty, they were interested in that answer.
So
I would also ask the seller, I would also ask the seller to put a restriction in the deed, language that meets with your approval. Secondly, Peter actually sent me an email saying he didn't like the language because I only mentioned the 500,000, but I did that only because any other possible grants are indefinite at this point in time. There'd be nothing to prevent us from.
Jack, we were asking for green acres for the full amount, even though we don't have it already allocated. It would be covered from future allocations, and we would expect that in the next couple of months.
I understand, but expecting and having in hand if you were going to.
No, because we can be pre-approved, and if it's 5 years from now, if they actually give us the money, we would still be eligible if we ask for it.
Well, my main point is that there'd be nothing to prevent us if we get additional grant monies, putting money into the open space trust fund. In fact, green acres would probably require that.
Correct.
So, excuse me.
Secondly, with respect to the $1.2 million, we do that with all appropriation ordinances. Before you buy a fire truck, you appropriate money from the capital improvement fund or whatever, and it's always higher than the amount. Doesn't mean we have to spend $1.2 million. So, I had a third point, I forgot.
So Peter, theoretically, you could get 1.1 million return.
It's possible. I wouldn't want to make that promise, but yes, that is
I think we'd have
possible.
to pay about $100,000 if Aaron gets all of the money back.
Yeah, we're talking about hypothetical numbers now, theoretically,
Right,
we're saying, so on.
But best case scenario,
We would get it for almost free.
$100,000.
Yeah. Of money that's already set aside.
That's the best case scenario, but Aaron is now working on it.
And worst case, maybe.
And worst case is half from green acres, which is half the price,
Right.
including the soft acquisition cost, demolition, remediation, etc. Yes.
Mr. Orson, anything?
No.
Oh, yeah, sorry, just say,
No,
I heard you say zero, I just wanted to.
In my area, the worst case scenario is always zero.
Okay.
Is there a worst case scenario where we would get zero from the green acres? Is that a possibility?
No.
Anything is possible. Some things are, wildly unlikely.
It's highly unlikely, but it is
Highly unlikely.
possible. Okay.
Okay. All right, so council members, do you want to amend this, move it to an April meeting, or would you like to
I
adopt?
think option 3 was a good idea. Jack, want to repeat option 3?
Yes, if one of you would move and then someone else would second, to amend the ordinance by adding the following language at the end of section 1, which currently reads $1.2 million is hereby appropriated from the Borough Open Space Trust Fund to purchase the property described in the preamble, and then I would amend it by adding to be used only for open space and passive recreation purposes. And further, to continue the public hearing on the ordinance as amended until the April 9, 2018 council meeting.
All right, do I have a motion on that?
Well, just for my clarification, at this point, we're just voting to amend it, not to actually appropriate anything?
That's correct.
Okay.
There'll be a vote on, as I said, there will be a vote on the ordinance as amended at the next meeting.
Gotcha.
We voted up again. And at that same meeting, if it does pass, then you'll vote on a resolution to authorize execution of the contract.
But we're not appropriating any money at this point?
We're
No,
not appropriating money,
nothing,
we're not
nothing's happening
authorizing
right
purchase.
Have a motion?
I move to amend it, sorry.
Moved by
Go ahead.
Mr. O'Day,
A second.
second by Mr. DeLeo. All in favor? I don't need a roll call, right, Jeff?
I would do that.
A roll call?
Ms. Mara?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeo?
Yes.
All right, the yeses have it. We'll carry this until the next meeting in April.
Can I add one?
As I said, there will be a publication of a notice by Anthony describing the amendment, saying public hearing will be continued on April 9th.
Christine, you want to add
I
something?
just want to add that I definitely appreciate everyone who came out to talk about it, and I definitely do want to hear more of your neighbors. If, for those of you who live, and, I realize that you just found out about it and everything, so if you could just point everyone in our direction for the next meeting that wants to speak and be heard, because we definitely want to listen to that.
Well, I want to thank everyone. I apologize for being late to getting here. I had another meeting in southern part of Somerset County this evening, so, but I came just at the right time, I guess. Thank you, and Open Space, thank you guys for all you do, everything, all your hard work. All right, resolutions. We have resolutions 1880 to 1893. Any council members want to discuss any of these, pull any for further comment or anything?
1889, I'd like to get a little bit of background on that.
Okay. All right, Mr. O'Day wants to call 1889. Anyone else? John, you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
All right, Christine? I'm going to the far right and left corners here. Mike, you okay? Okay, 1889. Let's pull that now and we'll discuss it. What do you have, Tom?
So I'm wondering if there's some background on this. Are we changing like the providers? Authorizing a contract via national co-op contract to sports field specialists?
Jack?
I'm sorry.
1889?
1889?
Yeah.
What are we changing?
I don't think we're changing anything. I think we're just doing the contract.
Oh, it's to put them in a contract
Yeah.
list, providers list. If
So
we
just
wanna-
adding to the providers list?
Yeah.
Adding to buy it through a
Yeah,
phone,
yeah,
right?
Okay, thank you.
In case we want to add
All right.
to a contract.
All right, so that's it? Anybody else? All right, I'll entertain a motion to move resolution 1880 to 1893. Entertain a motion to move?
I'll move.
Moved by Mr. Mara. I have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. O'Day. Roll call, please.
Mr. DeLeo?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Ms. Mara?
Yes.
All right, move on to item number 9, reports. Report of municipal attorney. Anyone have any questions for the attorney on his report in public session? Seeing none, we'll move to 9B. Council Public Safety Committee.
Chris?
Chris isn't here.
Chief, you have anything
Chief,
for that?
you're here? Nothing? All right, anyone else? Questions for the Public Safety Committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to 9C, Council, Finance and Personnel Committee.
Tom?
Tom, you got it.
wanna add
Yep,
anything?
I
That
don't
wasn't a
have
question.
anything, I don't think of anything to report. We've got the introduction of the budget in the last meeting, and we've got the approval of the budget coming up in the next meeting.
It wasn't at the last meeting. Okay.
Anyone else, any questions? Seeing none, move on to 9D, Council, Engineering, Technology, and Public Works.
We didn't have a meeting since the last. John, do you have any short updates?
We did have a meeting last Tuesday.
Okay, good.
We got started, the snow finally stopped. We got started with the curve on Liberty Road this morning. We're awaiting the return of signed contracts for Mine Road from Claremont to Post Coonhart. We'll get that project going. Bids are out for drainage work on Chapin Road, due to be received April 12th. We have a treatment works approval submitted to NJ DEP for the filter replacement in the wastewater treatment plant. That'll be a summer project. And that's the crib notes.
Anyone else?
I just have a question. Last time we discussed, I missed the meeting, so I apologize, I wasn't feeling too well. But with paving Stevens and Somerset and with the new development, the condo development going in, should we wait to pave? Like, and I think Mine Mountain, you're looking to pave too, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure what the contractor's schedule is. Mr. Connie has a history of being pretty aggressive with his improvements. I believe we had the developer's agreement. Jack, has that been approved, the developer's agreement?
Yes, and I delivered it, Bill, so he has it. He has a copy.
He'll begin working in earnest on the improvements that he's doing between Claremont and Stevens. Our work on the drainage and curbing can go on. We will absolutely wait to final pave until he's done all his improvements.
Yeah, 'cause I think he has to connect up from Stevens.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Mine Mountain will get done. Right now, we just have preliminary engineering drawings for Stevens, Somerset, Woodland. They're nearing completion, so we got to get those out to bid. A couple months will go by before we're anywhere close to bringing the contractor in. So we will absolutely make sure that those improvements on Mine Mountain are done before.
We just want to make sure that you don't do them and then they.
Sure, no, we'll work around them, yeah.
That's
We'll
why we
work around
delayed
them,
Mine
yeah.
Mountain, because of Conti's project.
Yeah. But, okay, anything else?
I have a general comment. I think from my own personal perspective, it seems like the township's done a great job of removing trees that were blocking the roads, and also, at least close to where I'm living, they seem to have come and fairly rapidly removed trees that had fallen. So in general, from what I've seen and from what I've heard from a few people, it seems like they've done a really commendable job. I do have a couple follow-up questions though as well, which is, some constituents have asked, what about the stumps that are remaining? Is that the responsibility of the municipality? Is there anything that can be done or will be done regarding those? And then replanting of trees, is that something that the borough would address, or is that outside the scope of what we would do?
Well, John, we had a brief discussion on this. Private property is private property, you know, so.
Phase 1 was getting the roads cleared during the storm with the assistance of, Chief and Fire, and Phase 2 is what you just referenced, getting the trees removed curb to curb. Phase 3, which is going to be the real fun one, is going out and removing all the debris that's in the right-of-way that fell from borough trees or fell in the borough right-of-way, not what residents are dragging out. That will be left at curbside.
So
that was a notice that went out on the I think you had a call that went out. It's also on the borough webpage. We need to be strict with that because we're not anticipating getting any money back from FEMA for removal of debris. We've got 3 to 4 weeks of tree removal just for legitimate borough tree removals. With regards to the stumps, if it is a borough tree, we are responsible for removing the stumps. That would be a phase 4 and is down the road in the order of priorities.
Sure.
So John, do we have an inventory of houses where the right-of-way has been, needs to be removed and cleaned up? because as snow starts melting, residents are gonna start throwing the trees from their backyard into the right of way, and I don't wanna be picking up everybody's tree. I don't think the town wants to pay for that cleanup. We've seen that before. So is there an inventory of properties where the right of way has been compromised and we're gonna go back and clean that area up?
The police, after one of our meetings down at the OEM during the storm, recommendation was made, one of the lieutenants, I believe, volunteered and patrol went out over the weekend and videoed the roads.
Perfect.
Shortly after the storm, so we know what was legitimate borough trees and what's been dragged out.
Good job.
The question of replanting, is that something that we do or would do over time?
Shade Tree has a trust fund that could supply monies for that.
And the borough would do the planting, the shade trees?
In the past, Shade Trees contracted directly with
Okay.
someone to do plantings, identifying proper locations for.
You hire a professional outside contractor and they come in. Anyone else? All right, any other committee or commission reports? Shade Tree, HPAC, anything?
One of the green team items Wanda's gonna talk about in the next section.
Okay.
I'll save it for her.
All right, you're saving it for Wanda? She's right up in front here, so. All right, items of business, 10A signage, Kathleen Palmer. This is something we've been working on, and Ms. Palmer has dedicated numerous hours and volunteerism towards developing signs for our town. And Lloyd, you were involved with it also early on with the
Just want to pass this around as a sample of the kind of sign that
Yes.
the mayor and I have been working on. And in order to make that come to fruition, I needed an artist, which I had a really talented one, to do a rendition of the Borough Hall. And the great cherry trees given to us by Japan, and the fountains that are clearing up the water and shaking the juice out of the pond. And it's taken a while. This artist had a heart attack really early on when he was working on this, so it's been delayed. But the purchase of the signs was approved previously, so I just thought you could see what they look like.
And this was a picture, if you'll remember, we looked at it about a year ago.
Right, well,
And
it's
the
August.
gentleman basically redid things as we requested, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful painting.
Can we hang that up in here?
And what actually, certainly, and what actually happens ultimately is the sign is made and the high-resolution digital image is actually put onto the sign. So the sign, this doesn't go on the sign itself. And so he's already given me high-resolution images, and I have a sign person that's already been spoken to about making them, and I think Kevin was intending to have 2 of them made
Yes,
for 202.
on Route 202 right now, yes,
Would say
yes.
established 1924.
Yes, we allocated monies last year for this, and the monies are still waiting, but I thank you for all your
He's been
help
really
on this
working
and acquiring an artist to do such a great
Thank you.
painting. But it's beautiful. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions? Lloyd?
Yeah, can we make sure of the scale on those signs, because I know the sign in front of Bernardsville Township Hall here, when you drive by, it's even tough to read it, so.
Okay.
And I've done work on the signs as well too, I can bring.
I know, I
them to
remember,
council
yes,
meetings,
yes, you did, yes.
Actually, if you go to speed limit, you can see it, but if you're speeding, you can't see it. I tested it out, because you told me to slow, so I went to speed limit, you
Jeff,
can
I'm gonna
read
have
it.
multiple choice after for you to see everything below that says Bernardsville.
If you go to speed limit, you can see it.
Anyone else? No, but Lloyd, you had preliminary work done on this, and I thank you too, early on. Okay, so you know you're getting old, I gotta keep putting my glasses on. Okay, Roots for Rivers Restoration Grant. Wanda? And Kathleen, thank you again for all the work you've done on, with this project and the signage and getting artists together.
Hi, Wanda Napick.
How are you?
7 Paisley Street. I do have a handout. double-sided and really kind of funky, so that's to test us all. So, the Roots for Restoration grant was due on March 16th, but due to trees being down and lack of electricity and all of that, I submitted the grant and then asked for forgiveness later. So I asked Ralph, thank you Ralph, and Jack to enable this to happen without coming here tonight, but here we are tonight, and I'm sharing with you what we did. We're asking for trees, and we're asking for $3,500 to plant them in a floodplain area in Bernardsville, which is the headwaters of the Passaic River. And there's many trees that were down on that landscape at the New Jersey Audubon, and Mike Anderson is here to share the devastation. And so we applied for a Sustainable Jersey grant for sycamore and cedar trees, and then volunteers will do the work to plant them. There'll be no additional funding needed from the town, and the liabilities on the New Jersey Audubon since it's their property. So the uniqueness about this grant was that it was funded by Nature Conservancy, but Sustainable Jersey is the distributor of the funds, and so we had to apply through the Sustainable Jersey website and ask for funding. We asked for $6,200. They came back and said, great idea, we'll give you $3,500. And so we're waiting to hear from them. They haven't approved it yet. We're hopeful because they're asking us for revised budgets and all of that we'll get something. And we're hoping that the delay this week will be notified on Thursday, is that we'll get the 62 instead of the 35, but who knows, we're hoping for anything. So we're giving the trees and the fencing to protect them, and then we will do the work to plant them. And we're hoping that we'll be planting them soon. So Mike, do you want to add anything?
No, all I wanted to do is to thank the town and Green Team for all their work on this, knowing that it'll make Burnsville a greener community.
Yeah, and just thanking in advance that we were able to get this in. The deadline was the 16th, and I couldn't get there before tonight, so.
This is great. I thank you both for all your work, and I know Christy McDonald also submitted another grant for pennies around the pond. And she'd be an honor tonight at the Somerset County Commission on Status of Women, the outstanding woman in Somerset County for environmental initiatives. So she'd be an honor tonight. It was supposed to be a couple of weeks ago with the snow.
Yeah.
You know, everything. That's why I'm late tonight. So, with the snow, we thank you for all your work and your efforts and everything else.
You.
Thank you.
So Mike, I just have a question. Is this the strip of road, like, before you come to the bend, where there's a lot of trees that have fell down there?
Yeah, there'd be three areas primarily. There'd be one stretch which is on the far side of the sanctuary of Indian Grave Brook. And that's a wetland area. These are Atlantic white cedars, which will restore a plant community that hasn't been there probably since the Revolutionary War time, when all the white cedars were cut down for housing building materials. The other side of the river where the conventional trails are was actually the encampment site for the New Jersey Brigade in the winter of 1779-80, while they were building the log cabins on the other side of the hill. So in that big field in the woods is a broad, wide, long floodplain, and that's where the planting could be. Again, it'd be additional Atlantic white cedars, and the 50 sycamores would be dispersed randomly in the gap that have been created by the whole series of storms, Irene, the Halloween snowstorm, Sandy, and most recently these nor'easters that have taken a big toll. So we're seeing a lot of gaps in the forest, and if we don't plant them, we're going to see nothing but invasive plants. So we look forward to doing some similar work in the town parks if this funding from TNC and from Sustainable Jersey is available yet.
How about that area, like where we put the bridge? That spot there is like a lot of dead trees, and can we put some there too at some point?
The new bridge,
You know what?
Yeah, where the bridge is probably going to get cleared out of some of the invasives first, and then we'll look to plant in there some of the lower growing trees, since it's immediately adjacent to the electric right-of-way. We don't want tall trees.
Oh, there's
We'd
some
like to see some
electric wires there.
low-growing cedars, some dogwoods, some redbuds, spice bush, those kind of things.
Okay.
And that'll be a 2-year to 3-year plan as well. I don't think we'll get our burn in this year, which is one of the management tools we use for that riparian corridor. And we don't want to do the work right now because we want to get all the students on board when we've opened the trail up to the school and to educate them on what we want to do and why we want to do it and why it's the right thing to do. We don't want to just go in there and cut down everything, knock everything down. So we'll have a plan, and we hope to have the school and the students involved in that process.
Now we're looking at like a May 5th probably ribbon cutting there with the bridge and connecting the Autobahn. So it will be a community event. Christine Cinco de Mayo, so get ready.
And we can plant trees that day too.
Yes,
if this comes through.
We sure can, but it's a great thing. And John, you're working on a trail run.
Yep. I'll be there.
Father's Day.
Yep.
So we're
Olivia's
working on that also. So that's another thing we'll be discussing further. We have a meeting tomorrow night, actually. So, but all good stuff, and thank you everyone for your volunteerism and support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work, Wanda.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, food truck inquiry. A couple different angles here. We have one food truck that came to us and requested to be part of Bernardsville, and sir, and wanted to be.
Good evening.
How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Thank you. My name is Tony Cabral, and 96 190 Road, Bernardsville.
Right.
It's my daughter, Laura, my son-in-law, Mark.
Okay.
And we come for the
Nice to meet you.
food truck idea that we want to present to this committee.
Okay. All right, so tell us what you want to do. I know we got a few things where you want to go on the Ammerman lot, possibly on Mount Airy Road or in the train station and stuff, so just open discussion. Go ahead.
Yes.
This would be like informal.
Yeah, this is informal, just
cool.
speak,
Yeah.
you know, yeah. who you are.
Yeah.
So we were looking at the possibility, how are you all today? Thanks for hearing us. We were looking at the possibility of the Morristown Road or the train station. Obviously, that would all have to be agreed on through zoning, through everything else about being able to put the space in. So what we're looking to do is to open up a food truck to do. Our main thing we'll be doing will be empanadas. Tony's the chef. He's been a chef for over his whole life.
And I like empanadas. My wife's from Ecuador.
Oh,
there you go.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see it as a popular food. I mean, it's quick, it's easy, and we'd like to make it trendy and friendly for the community, not just the Hispanic community.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
What kind of hours would they be open?
It'd be morning time, so people commuting. It definitely would be open that time until the evening.
7 days a week?
Six.
or seven.
We have to
In the same location?
In the same
yeah.
location.
Yeah, so one thing we're faced with the governing body, we have to check our zoning, number one. That's first. And then we have to check with our Chamber of Commerce. Okay, so we just had a meeting on Saturday. We had a survey that went out, and the president of the chamber was there, so I let her know that, this was gonna come up on the agenda soon, And so we just wanna make sure we're not interfering with any of our brick and mortar restaurants, where people have purchased property or you're paying rent. So, but we'll have to check our zoning, but I think we're open to the idea. And Christine, you gave me some literature and information on different food truck things that you sent me. So.
I think it's a great sign that you want to open in our town, so thank you for acknowledging that there is, there is a need for people to experience other cuisines and, types of food. My only concern is that if it's empanadas, there is a establishment on Claremont that sells empanadas. I checked their hours and they close at 2. So would you be it would be that you would be competing with them, in my opinion, and would you be open to just doing like the later part of the day where they're not, maybe go somewhere else for the morning and then be down there, if it's gonna be empanadas. I mean, if it's a different type of food, then I guess it would be less of a, and I totally understand that, like, it's, a competitive business, the restaurant business. I mean, it's like, if your food is great, everybody's gonna come, and that's the end of the story. But at the same time, like, we don't wanna give the message that we are not supporting what we have now, because some of our restaurants, you know, they're struggling too. So we don't wanna send that message. So.
And again, as we have different events too in the community, like John, you had the Father's Day run coming up. Perhaps, you know, a food truck would be compatible with that and with our recreation programs, et cetera, you know, as long as it's okay. And we have to go through our health department and everything, but we're gonna have to do more research than just approve it tonight.
Where's the truck now? Are you working in a different town now, or?
Excuse me?
Is the truck a new truck, or is it?
It's a new truck. Yeah, you know, we present a model that we are thinking to bring over here, but just we have to see decision in order to adjust, because that's custom made, and we have to see what we can adjust over here, and you know, for the location and you know, with the details of the.
Do you have an existing food truck in other towns anywhere?
No. I'm a chef. I used to cook in Rock City.
Okay.
I used to cook in Somerset Hills Country Club. I used to own my restaurant in Mine Brook, New Jersey.
Okay.
Yes, and I mean, my history of culinary is I have a culinary degree, and that's why. And thank you very much, Christina, for the opportunity to bring us over here to present the idea, because we think that.
No, it's a great idea, and we welcome, you know, the idea and diversity in our community.
Yeah, and this is a brand new venture that we want to partner on, so we're pretty excited about it. So no, there's no existing truck currently. I mean, there's a lot that we're going to have to create, which is marketing, really customize it to Bernardsville niche, because this is actually where we grew up and where my dad currently lives. So we love Bernardsville, and we want to create it specifically for this town and what's needed. And we're open to different hours, I believe, because we're not trying to compete. And I think they do have a certain clientele that we would partner with, but also we would open up who we actually serve to.
Yes.
And in addition, it wasn't just empanadas. Empanadas and crepes was the concept.
Yeah.
So that'd be the base of it. Yeah.
Well, not speaking for all the council members, but the three right here in the center, as you can see, we're not
if you are hungry, hang on, we have some meals here.
If you want a little snack, we actually
did bring samples for you.
Yes.
Just a little snack to hold you over. Long meetings, you need a snack break.
The other thing about food trucks is that you have the ability to be in whatever location. So if, let's say, it's decided that we're going to set a designated area for food trucks or whatever, and it's not the train, like, we want to support this because, like I said, it's a good sign. People want to be here. And at the same time, we don't want to hurt what's already here. So if, let's say, it was a
Chief, I'm watching
Food
you.
Truck
I'll be
Friday
there.
or
I'm
something.
watching
You know, I've just been kind of like looking into what some other towns do, and they do. We don't have any ordinance on our books that restricts it right now, and essentially we. I don't know if Jack knows, but you can't legally say food trucks are against the law because they're, as long as they're parked legally, there's nothing that, right?
That's according to your zoning, if you have a veteran's license and stuff.
Municipal property would need permission, so yes.
Right.
But if you're gonna proceed and get by these other issues, then I would certainly adopt an ordinance. So it's uniform and adopted. I put one in the package from which link I should use, which covers all the things that should be covered.
Right. But the license is a state license, right, that you have to get anyway?
Yeah.
And that is inspected by the state.
We'd have to
It'd
get several
have to be a state
licenses.
license, and, you know, our local health department would also oversee,
Sure,
Yeah.
see things, you know.
The county and
Yeah.
and the town.
I think, you know, I guess my only thought is if like a food truck Friday sounds like an interesting idea, but if you're permanently parked 6 days a week in a particular location, it's almost like an established
Yeah.
location, and I mean, we do have
brick and mortar.
places that are available for a restaurant, you know.
And
I
like
mean,
the
maybe not
Amarin lot,
currently set up as a
the
restaurant.
Amarin lot is kind of residential, it's backed up. to
Yeah,
houses
that's a
there.
residential zoning there, yeah.
So,
So that's where, but that one just came through the email.
I don't know which one he's talking about.
What two lots you think? You're thinking the train station or another spot you're thinking about?
The train station and the lot down across from
Mount Airy?
yeah on
Ammerman lot.
Oh, the one just
Right
above
down
the tracks,
street,
as you're going
yes,
towards the Y?
Yes.
Okay.
no sorry he was
Going towards the Palmer building,
no on Morristown Road he was
on the right side there.
Okay.
not on Mount Airy
Sorry.
on Morristown.
chicken and beef, I'm not sure. Right there. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
The other question that I just had was like, if the schools or any private event, I guess this is what you asked earlier, like, would you be willing to do private events and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was just about to get to your question. It wouldn't necessarily be us competing with, you know, a brick and mortar. If it is a thing that the town decides to start doing festivals, or you know, if there is any events in the town, we just put down the handbrake and we can up and go. You know, it's not a brick and mortar, and that's really the difference about us being us and a brick and mortar.
All right, well, it sounds good. Does Anthony, you have everybody's contact information here?
I do have your contact information when you come in, yeah.
And if the council is open to this idea, we'll have Jack look at it further as our attorney. Let him look at it. And we'll speak with the, also Chamber of Commerce and make sure they're okay, you know, so,
So put it on the April 11th meeting for further discussion.
April 11th for further discussion.
April 9th.
April 9th.
April 9th.
Folks, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Thank you.
Are you getting trendy?
I don't know if it,
Thank you, thank
Okay.
you, thank you very much.
thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry you
Thank
had to
you.
wait so long.
No, no problem.
And Anthony, you have the contact information, you'll communicate?
I do, yeah.
Back, all right, very good, very good. All right, thank you.
You brought a lot, my God.
Yeah, chicken? Okay, it's a big chicken. All right, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll discuss this further in April on our next meeting. And Anthony will be in communication, our clerk will be in communication with you. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Ready? Renaming fields and sponsorship. And Christine, you had done some research on this that I know of. And Annie, come on up if you want to. We spoke
at the beginning.
Oh, you spoke early? Okay.
Christine's gonna come back to us in 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, so Annie came up and talked to us about, the fact that she, you know, how deeply she's hoping that we are gonna do, and I know that that's the case, because we've seen you here every meeting. So, I also explained, that we want to implement a procedure that we can use now and forever in the future that will allow any and all residents to honor loved ones in a way that they see fit for the, you know, going forward.
Okay.
So this is kind of the impetus to Oh, he left his stuff. Oh my gosh.
Oh, he loves
Catch him. This was the impetus to putting together a plan like this, and it not only will help honor the important members of our community, but it will also help us to beautify parks and playgrounds going forward. And many towns, as Jack and I and some other members of council have looked at other towns' ideas and what they've put in place to preserve and maintain open spaces. So it's just a great supplement to our parks, and I think I'm glad that this came up because we've seen it in a smaller scale next to the library. There's that sculpture with the benches, and that was, you know, somebody who wanted to honor Jay Parsons. And so if we could have something formal set in place, not extensively complicated, but just, you know, if you want to do this, it's this, you know, this is the dollar amount to do it or whatever, and stuff like that. So we will implement something, and I don't know if it's going to be a cost involved or not, but that remains to be seen, I guess.
Okay. So, Annie, you have anything to say, or you spoke? I'm late today, so I got here late.
Yeah,
so
I did speak. I mean, I think that, you know, I'm a little disappointed, to be honest, because I feel like I've lived here for 5 years. I can say, I'm awesome. Here's $100, you know, do something for me. I mean, I'm here, I've come, I've, you know, argued for certain things that I was passionate about, but I haven't held a candle to what we did.
Yes.
Right.
So like, I can spend $100 and I'm, you know, here forever. And he spent 70 years of his life dedicated to this town, and it really does disappoint me.
Well, I don't think there's
I really do.
It's not, don't be disappointed. We love Lou.
I know
Lou myself,
I
you know,
didn't want
personally.
it came out wrong. So
And,
in addition, like that type of program would be something great to implement. What you're talking about is different. And each one of those, each one of the towns that we looked at, it's not only, here's $100, put this guy's name on it, it's an application process. So what was the person's significant accomplishments or contributions to the town? It's not just, you know, a sponsorship.
And what we're
So
doing
I
here,
thank
we
you.
hear you. We thank you for championing this and everything coming in front of us. But we have to change some policies that are already set on the books here. So the wheels of government move slow at times, but love Lou, love the family. I know him, knew him, you know, for years, and taught my daughters in school, actually. Yeah. So he's a great person, and we do want to move forward with something here. It's just a matter of changing some of the policies that are on the books right now and the procedures. But we are doing this, and because of you, you've come forward. And we thank you for being here with us like this. And I know I see you all the time. Joffrey, you say, I'm going to keep coming. I'm going to keep coming. And you are here, and we thank you. But there will be a positive outcome, I'm sure.
Well,
So in terms of a committee, though, how are we forming a committee, and how many people, how often are we going to meet, you know, like?
Yes, so, I mean, this is kind of, to me, I think,
You're almost running out of recreation, really. We have a recreation committee, so you run everything out of recreation if you're in any fields and stuff.
well, that's the thing. I don't really want to, it's kind of a combination of open space and recreation. And I think the two should work hand in hand on something like this.
Which
So,
they can do. We can have liaisons and report to the council.
But as far as an official committee, I think without moving too quickly, we could dedicate a field to him.
Well, if the council's in agreement, we can move forward, and Jack, you could amend whatever we have in writing right now, maybe for our next meeting. Do we have anything in writing right now that prohibits?
We don't have a formal policy, it's been the informal policy.
It's been
It should
an
be
informal
formalized,
policy.
many of them.
Yeah, so we should
think I'd-
formalize something for next meeting.
I'd like to have a
If
policy
you're
before
okay,
we
yeah,
decide
please.
what
Yeah,
we're
that's
gonna
what I'm
do.
saying, yeah, that's right. So,
But we think we're gonna have a policy in 2 weeks. We haven't even had the committee meeting yet.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's just kind of, it can be a policy going forward and renaming a field now, or?
I think we should
Policy should
discuss
sort of
this
follow up from
as
that.
a committee first before we make any decisions. Since I've been on this council, there's been several families that have come forward, and if we make a decision without thinking about it, we could stir up the other families, because they came forward and we said we had policies in place. We should make sure we're all consistent on the policy and we move forward with something that's fair for everybody.
So if by next meeting we have an application form, we need to have that.
Yeah, I would recommend this be by ordinance, just so there is some.
All right, we'll draft an ordinance for next meeting.
I can do that.
And if the council's in agreement, at this point, with naming or renaming
I think
fields.
we need more input from non-council people first.
Okay.
Yeah. I think maybe a few people from rec, maybe a few people from open space, and then come forward with
All right, so you want to discuss it at the recreation level and open space level?
I don't want to discuss it at the rec level, I want a committee form, let them
A
discuss
committee,
it as a
okay.
group,
All right.
without everybody from the rec, because it's gonna get.
If the council puts it on a committee.
All right, so you could have 3 members on the committee. Any council members
I think that would be a fair
volunteering to be on a
process.
committee here?
Oh, I already did.
Christine? Okay.
I'll help out if you want.
John? Sure. John Donahue. Okay, one more?
Let me
I'll
take
be
you.
your open space person.
Oh, you're the open space
So Mary
person?
Jane's
Come
on
on.
open space, and I don't know if you're familiar, but many towns, that's part of their land conservancy process, like.
Any other council member? One more spot open.
We're doing 4 people?
3.
Oh, you
We
want
have
3
Christine,
council members?
John, yeah. We don't have to have 3, but I'm just opening it up.
I think two's enough.
2's enough?
I think you need more
All right,
from rec.
Christine and John, Mary, and Cheryl. All roads lead to recreation, so you're there. Lloyd, you want to be on?
Is this open to the public too, so can I go on?
Sure, you want to be on? Yeah, you want to be on the committee?
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering, but maybe Mrs. Sprower would like to come as well too. I mean, maybe she should be on it.
Who?
I might be a little biased.
No, but I mean, in general, I think just opening up to maybe more community members. Not today, but maybe in a couple, weeks, I think would be a good idea.
As you can, yes, most definitely, because you're the instrument of this here. You're the one who's created this.
So this committee is
Patty?
gonna decide.
Can I just make a suggestion?
Sure.
And Annie, you know I love your father-in-law, I mean, I do, but I do think you need an objective committee to look at this without having personal, I mean, with all due respect,
I would totally
her
go
goal
for it.
is to want him to have a field named after him. I think that would be wrong, and what I would suggest is not looking for volunteers or the 10 people that are
No,
here.
right.
But to form a committee, we have a full rec committee where I know people would volunteer, and the same for open space. I would utilize those people that you've assigned already to come up with a recommendation and bring it to council. I think 2 weeks is aggressive. He's not going anywhere, Andy's not going anywhere. Let's do this right. I've been here when it's gone haywire. I would recommend, I think I know where Christine's going with this, and there are towns that do bench programs and have good programs for people who want to honor loved ones and recognize them. We had programs here years ago where even with plaques within the community and within this building, where we had volunteers for the year. We haven't had that in years. Like, those are programs that we can bring back that can acknowledge and recognize great gentlemen like Lou Ferrandi. So I would say keep it objective, keep it to the committees that have already been appointed on rec, on open space,
All right.
Christine as the lead.
Our council liaison,
Well, we also
Christine and
have-
John, you'll be the leads on this.
We also have, skills bank forms of people who could
Yes.
possibly contribute, so I'll review those too.
So we can look at that, but we're gonna move forward with this process. And then we'll, consult with Jack for legal advice as we continue to move forward, but thank you. Annie, thank you again for, putting this effort forward. We really appreciate it, thank you, thank you. And please be patient the wheels of government move slow, you know, very slow. All right, community newsletter. One thing I did, I was basically, a publisher had contacted me and asked if we would be interested in increasing our basically communications with the town. The community newsletter is for free, it's at no cost. They solicit local advertising, etc., or regional advertising. And basically the only thing we would have to pay for is the mailing. And they usually put it out twice a year. So just wanted to bring it in front of the council. It's a good, I think it's a good tool. Keep our citizens informed in the network. And you guys let me know what you think. It's no cost to the borough except for the mailing. And we don't have to mail it if you don't want to. We can put it in the library, borough hall, etc. You know, we can put it wherever you want to.
How many times a year would you do it?
This is usually like twice a year.
Do they have an agreement?
I have their paperwork and everything, but I just want to see if anybody wants to move forward. I just ask for samples of what they put out, you know, so.
They get paid by selling ads?
Yeah. Yeah, they get paid by, they get paid by their advertising, so. You got one? Mm-hmm. Let me see what we got. But it's up to you guys. I just thought it would be another tool that we could use to basically communicate with our residents. If you're in favor, if not.
I like it. I would
No
like
harm.
to see like a guide for new residents online too.
That was a little electronic version of this? Washington.
I'd have to research it further.
There's something down here.
Yeah, I had to further research it. It's just preliminary stages now.
Maybe.
This would be good for like real estate officers too.
I'm in the real estate business.
No.
No, you'll see the advertising. Some of them are realtors, some of them are, you know.
How much do you think mailing would cost?
Well, they said about 27 cents a copy to mail. So you're probably talking about, to mail to the entire town, probably about $700, somewhere around there. And that's if we wanted to mail it, if we wanted to participate in the process. But if we're okay with it, you know, I could arrange some further inquiry with the company and have them basically give us further information as long as everybody's okay with it.
Yeah, we get mailing costs. I'd be interested. That's going to be the deciding factor, right?
Yeah.
How many eyeballs do you hit? I'd worry because you know, so we get so many flyers in the mail, and you know, so the cost benefit.
So what's that? $800? $900. Okay. Twice a year.
I guess I would ask the same question that John asked. Is there an electronic version of it too? Because that would also be an easy, more simple distribution method.
I will further look into it and
an app or something.
So that you have more information.
Yeah, let's see.
Okay. Sounds okay? I get further inquiry?
Mm-hmm.
Not spending any money.
Sounds good.
That's good, that's good. Thank you, folks. Just wanted to share that with you. Clarification of the department's list on ordinance 181761. What do we have right there? That's just it was the finance and stuff, Anthony, that was the department's facilities instead of finance or recreation.
Okay. Just need council consent on that.
All right, you need a roll call on this?
Do you need a roll call on that?
I believe yes, please.
All right, because it came under the ordinance. So.
Sorry, I missed what Anthony said.
What happened was, on one of our past governmental actions, we had departments listed and it said recreation, and it should be facilities.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it be police vehicles or whatever it might be, they were under different titles. Okay. So Anthony, in the package, it's renamed correctly.
Yeah, I think one said DPW and then there should be facilities, two said recreation and one said library. but it should have been
It should be all
facilities
facilities,
instead.
Okay.
rather than just breaking it down.
The amounts are the same.
So that was, everything else is the same, it's just a clarification of the naming of departments.
Okay.
So I entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Leo, second by Mr. O'Day, roll call please.
Mr. DeLeo?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yep.
Ms.
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
All right, 10G, policy for outside groups using borough facilities. Anybody on that?
Yeah, at the last meeting, you asked me to get some information on that, and I did distribute the JIF policy with respect to the requirements for both insurance coverage and whole harmless agreements for various categories of groups, starting with, in-town recreational groups, and going down to for-profit groups, they have higher standards or requirements for those.
All right, so what are we doing here tonight, Jack? Anything?
No, it's up to you all. I mean, at some point in time, you may want to adopt these in some form as an ordinance, so it goes beyond just the JIF requirements, because we always tell people as JIF requires, that, it's not always clear when people come to the borough, what they have.
So just defining what a nonprofit is, what a for-profit is.
Right, and what the requirements are for different types of groups for use of borough facilities. The respect to insurance is the same, full harmless agreement.
Anyone?
Sounds good.
Good? Okay with that?
Are these numbers consistent with what we've been telling the organizations?
Jeff?
Yeah, and it does allow, I couldn't hear that really well.
I'm sorry,
It does
Jack,
allow
are these
exceptions.
numbers consistent with our current policy?
Yes, because we've been applying the JIF policy for
Okay.
years.
And what does JIF stand for again, for ratification?
Joint
Joint insurance.
I got you, okay.
All right, so everybody's okay with
Yeah,
it?
I'm fine.
We're good? Jack, any action has to be taken, or?
Still, if you want, I'll put it into an ordinance form.
Next time.
Sure, that'll be fine. Thank you.
I'll have that for the next meeting.
All right, 10H, council committee appointment. Anyone from council?
I think that this was on here because public safety had Councilman DePortier was on there, and now that he's not on council.
That'll be John. So
Expressed
that-
interest
yeah,
in
John.
writing to be on public safety,
Okay.
so we need council consent for that.
And John, if you see anything else you want to negotiate with any further council members, please feel free to do so, I know you're coming in late in the game here, mid-year, but if you see anything else, you might say,
Yeah, and
I would
so-
like to do this, and, would you be willing?
Yeah, I'll overfill my plate right now, so I can
Okay.
do that, and I can work with Christine on the other thing. and
That's great.
Just take it as a,
That's
as it comes.
great.
I'm still like learning the
You're-
jargon as you just saw right there.
You're an asset, so we appreciate you being here, so, yes,
Do we need to vote
it's
on
a
it?
council vote, yeah. So
I'll move
it's gonna be,
to appoint him to the public safety.
all right, moved by Mr. DeLeo, we have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Sullivan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Want to vote for yourself?
Okay, I guess so, yeah, I don't know if I could or not.
All right, expansion of sewer service area into the quarry.
Well, that's me. This is really just a very preliminary discussion. As you know, as part of our Mount Laurel settlement with Fair Share Housing Center, we added the quarry as a site, and the sewer service area did not extend to the quarry. So the first thing we would have to do is have Bob Bradley for our engineering do some kind of preliminary study. So I was just requesting authorization to ask them for a quote as to how much it would cost to get the process started.
Okay.
We previously had requests from other owners down there, and I think the
Yes.
council was amenable to the idea
Yes.
of extending the sewer service.
I knew Doug had brought that up last year.
Yes.
Towards the end of the year, about extending the
Right.
dedicated line, and it also helps with our co-obligations there with the lot.
Yes, correct.
So it's all intertwined.
So my question is, so who we contracting with this? We're gonna send this out to bid?
To give us some idea of the cost of.
Just
Yeah.
preliminary numbers, because I don't wanna tie them down doing this stuff. We got a lot of roads to work on.
Yeah.
It could be appropriate also for Arcadis, that it's bought out to Malcolm Burney to do that. They've had a lot of work with sewer service area.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want, I can ask that.
Maybe reach out to both of them.
Yeah. But like I said, this is a very preliminary step.
Okay.
I just wanted to get your approval before I did anything.
Okay. I think it's good.
Okay.
Moving in the right direction. Everybody's okay with it? Yes?
Yep.
Yes.
You're not spending any money,
No.
it's getting close.
All right. Yep. All right. Draft, 10J, abandoned property ordinance. Michael, anything from
No,
housing?
we're good. No, that's the way it's written is good.
The way it's written is good?
Yep.
We're good with it?
So I have a
Anybody
question
else?
about the fee schedule, because I thought,
You know, I've got issues with, maybe we should discuss that in closed session at some point. You know, it's,
All right.
that's what the fee should be.
Further fee schedule discussed?
Why don't we put it on for introduction next time with the fees blank, and then we can discuss those and
Okay.
consider appropriate fees.
Sounds good.
A lot of towns do have these fees. As I told you, this seems to be the sample ordinance that was distributed. Most of them are in South Jersey. They're all the exact same ordinance, so. But I do have some.
there was some pending litigation too, though, right?
Yeah, one of them's been challenged, and I think that's still pending. That was just a newspaper article saying about that, not a court opinion.
All right. So we'll put it on?
For 4-9?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, 10K, sample website linking policies. I know we want to increase our, usage of our website and have more information available. How far are we gonna go as a government body?
Isn't that kind of what this is very similar to the Washington Township thing, isn't it? I mean, linking a website to like, we were talking about last time? Like an outside group, sort of like putting community events and things?
Yeah, so, that's what we're looking at, how far are we gonna go with this, and,
I guess isn't that kind of what this group does also?
well, that's just a newsletter for Washington Township, but they would actually, yes, they could do something like that, and that would be part of our website, if we decide to, do that.
I read through the ones that were given to us as examples, and the Virginia Beach one looked like that would be most fitting to this town.
We've been through various website policies throughout the years here, and what do? Do we allow businesses to advertise, and how far do we go? Basically, we want to get the municipal business out there.
Right,
And access to the municipal governing bodies and the municipal government, but how far do we go with, additional resources on the website?
So if we start
Do we put
allowing
the
these,
football
we need a
team,
gate, we need a
the
gatekeeper.
chamber, so who's the gatekeeper and what's the,
Well,
what's
this lists the city webmaster, which we kind of have a borough webmaster, right?
yes.
Right.
So that would
And all
be,
disclaimers too, saying the borough's not endorsing any of these.
Yeah,
so it states it right in their policy, so we would do the same.
any recommendations or anything from the council members, or?
The Virginia Beach one looks fairly restrictive,
Okay.
Right, it's not overly restricted.
How about continue to be the most broad, if I,
Yes.
I would be concerned with being too broad versus being too restrictive.
So what's the concern about our current website? And where does concern come from and who?
I think the original discussion came because we wanted to have some sort of link to an external calendar of community events. And we didn't want them to be necessarily on our borough calendar. So we wanted some way for somebody who's interested in what's going on in the community to be able to access it somehow linked to our website. So I think that's the original genesis of this discussion.
And basically say this is what's happening in Bernardsville. It's not necessarily a borough-sponsored event, but
Yeah,
there's something happening.
right. It's kind of more informational, but again, then, we'll kind of criteria do we have for that?
Right, so the policy states that we don't, if we put something on our website, doesn't mean we endorse them.
Right.
And I think that's been the issue in the past, is that if we put a link to the Easter Bunny, does that mean we endorse, you know, the bank where the Easter Bunny was sitting? No, it
Or
doesn't. It
religion
just
of-
means we want people to know that the Easter Bunny is gonna be at the bank.
And we just need some controls because Anthony probably gets stuck with this in his office. So, he's gotta be able to, have a template where he could filter things that are coming through his office, so he's not here every week calling us or, every meeting saying, hey, this one wants to do this, that one wants to do that, you know?
Right, so it spells it out, that we wouldn't do anything for a for-profit business, we wouldn't, you know, it goes in and talks about, the one for Virginia Beach does anyway.
So how much time do you spend on this, Anthony, a week, currently?
We really haven't had any, you know, requests. That the one we had for the community calendar was really the one that brought
It's
this
just
about,
one link.
but that was, yeah.
And how about Chris? Does he spend any time on this, Ralph? Does Chris spend any time on this stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I
How many
don't.
gray areas you run into though?
For like, for outside links, like a lot of times I'll get pictures that put of like things like, for example, we put something on from the warming center, we had some of that, but this is like outside, you know,
Yeah. Lloyd, you have something?
Yeah, just not to distract you guys and drain more resources, I'm kind of objecting, you know, why do it in town? Why not have someone do it outside of town here, either the chamber or someone else, and have the link on our website to go look at, here's the link to everything that's being done in Bernardsville. That way, council, you guys don't really have to get involved with it besides that one link.
Well, there's, right now, the school has things going on, the churches have things going
So
on.
let somebody aggregate it all, but
Well,
not you
that's
guys.
ideally,
I don't know.
Isn't that what we're talking about?
yeah.
We're talking about linking to somebody's consolidated calendar
But is
outside.
that out there, the consolidated calendar out there right now, or I mean?
No,
So that-
but that's what we're saying.
There is actually,
Okay.
that's where this whole thing started, because Olivia Manning and that group that you started has a calendar, a community calendar. So we would provide the link to that on our website.
Just a link,
Just
and
say
we're not,
community
Chris
calendar.
D'Amato's not spending time on it, Anthony's not spending time on it, it's a link.
Right,
But we didn't wanna just put that link up there and then open the floodgates to, oh, I want a link too, you know?
right.
Right.
And that's what this policy spells out.
The Virginia Beach one seems to make sense, because it says sites that, there's really basically nobody except sites that provide a unique online resource that will assist in the provision and service and/or information that complement the purpose of the city's website, as outlined above.
Right, so if.
You don't
we
like
could
it, Jeff?
model our-
Yeah, Lloyd.
I gotta tell you, our website, it has so much stuff on it. The last thing I wanna do is add more. And I think this should be somebody else's job, not the borough.
Yeah. And,
Well-
and I'll just add too, if you add that link to other organization, if they're not allowing everybody on that calendar, if there's ever a problem, it's coming back to us.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what this says, is that we're not responsible for anything on
Yeah,
it.
but you are promoting a community calendar through the borough, and if that community calendar doesn't allow some people on it for some reason at all, that's a reflection on what the borough is showing as the community calendar.
Like competing community calendars.
Yeah.
Because I've just seen it happen before where you have,
So the question is, do we stay where we're at now
yeah,
and just maintain our policy? And, if the chamber or athletic facilities or the school has things they put out, or do we, open our gates up and start accommodating all outside resources? And that was one of the concerns years ago when we first started our website. So it's gonna be, see,
Well, I
council
just see
members.
it as a
that-
community service. You have new residents who may or may not know exactly where to look for events. Maybe their kids aren't in school yet, maybe they, you know, they're just looking for, and it's also, no offense, but like, you think there's too much stuff on the website, but you're not a millennial or, you know, younger generation, and those are the people who, you could put a gazillion things on that website and they'll find, they know how to find stuff. So that's, to me, I don't think there's too much on there, but that's a first, that's a subjective.
He didn't eat it.
You think there's too much. Patty might not.
Thank you for the insult, I
Just
appreciate it. And
It's true,
Yeah.
it's subjective.
Does the group that's doing the community calendar right now, Olivia Manning or whoever it is, do they have a list of guidelines of who they put on that?
No, they're
calendar?
they're on Facebook, they have they
It's
just
an event.
did it, they started a, survey a while back, and they had about 250 responses, that said, you know, what do you think about whatever in Bernardsville?
So they haven't actually created a community calendar, or they haven't?
It's in like a test, it
Yeah.
is created, but
But
it's.
that's your committee? I mean, who
No,
starts
no,
that
she's
committee?
she's a volunteer, to do one event, during the year. John's also a volunteer, he's working on a, race, Father's Day race, and, car show possibly,
Yes, that's my
And
wheelhouse. That's- I got enough, you know,
it just keeps growing.
tunnels, blinkers
So,
on one
so a
thing.
lot of people, they wanna volunteer, and that's great, you know, and we're there, so,
Okay.
but no, they, after, about a year ago, after one of the meetings, outside where they had, people, outside, consultants come in at the high school and, had a downtown meeting thing.
Right.
It came out of that, so they went out on Facebook, and they got quite a bit of response, Olivia and Tim Manning. So it was very good, very proactive.
But it's all volunteers,
It's all volunteer, yes.
so then, you know, it might be, it's kept up, it's not kept up, it's,
Yes,
so that would be.
yes, they have a business in town, et cetera, so
Why it's almost better to have, you know, a professional.
dedicated person
Yeah.
to do it, so, yeah.
Just-
All right, so where we at, folks? What are we looking at?
do we need to vote on it?
Want to make a recommendation?
I'll move to vote on it.
Anybody? You want to move?
I'll move it.
What's
Well,
your-
we don't have a specific
what's your
policy
thing?
to
What's
vote
your
on though, right?
Policy, motion, you want Jack to work on something for us?
I guess the only thing to put on tonight is leaving it as it is, or else to do some work.
I think it needs work. I think it needs work.
Leave it as is and work forward?
Yeah.
No, I mean, you could direct me to come up with a draft based on Virginia Beach, but you really can't vote on that tonight.
How's everybody feel?
The question is, does it require more work or do we stop now? I think that's what we're asking.
Yes.
So is that what we're gonna vote on? Continue to work on it or stop
Continue to
working on it
work
now?
Or stop now and just leave it as it is?
You know,
Stop meaning don't do anything, leave the website as it is.
I mean, as much as I love the idea, I just think it's a spiral. You're gonna get so many, you know, gray areas, you know, and these guys' time will be, you know, trying to discern what's what. And my 2 cents is, I like it, but I just can't see it being practical for the long run.
My only comment would be, you know, to say that, you know, the website has to stay as it is, you know. Websites evolve and change all the time. Ours is hardly the state-of-the-art website. You know, I'm not criticizing the website, but we're not cutting edge either.
No.
So I don't know if doing nothing is, you know, from here on is the best thing, you know?
Okay. Jeff, Michael, Christine?
I would be willing to spend a little more time on it before we reject it. I'm
I
not saying
agree
we
with
should pass it as is.
All right.
I agree with Tom.
All right, so we'll further research it, everybody
I
go
think,
home, sharpen the pencils,
I
do
think,
some reading.
you know, scrubbing the Virginia Beach one as a starting point makes sense.
Mhm.
Coming up with something that we can vote up or down would make sense.
Okay,
I'll bring something to the.
Okay.
good deal. All right, seeing course.
So as far as direction for Jack in terms of what he's formulating, we want it to be at least as restrictive as this, or a little bit more generous than Virginia Beach? What direction are we giving Jack?
Well, it sounds like nobody wants to do it. Is that the case? Because I want to do it. Does anybody else want to do it? Like add community events to the calendar? If not, then I'm okay with that.
I feel
I'm
like
just
that's,
saying
I don't feel like that's outrageous to say that we want to, you know, have people be aware of what's going on in the community. It seems like a good thing for the council the borough to do. Now, I understand that there are some legitimate concerns, you know, but, you know, we could have a 6-month renewal process where they, you know, if you sunset out after 6 months, if you come back and ask to be renewed, we'll renew your link, but that way we don't have stuff going on out there that we don't know about, you know.
And we'll have to see how we control it.
Yeah, and exactly what resources, I mean, I like the idea, it's just as practically implement how many resources from here it ends up drawing away.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, Lloyd made that point, you're making the point, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but creating a link on a website doesn't, you know, doesn't lead to other problems.
If Anthony's a
unintended
point
consequences
person,
kind of
if
thing.
Anthony's a point person, how many people are calling him a day saying, I wanna put this up on the website?
And it'll probably grow as it gets out there, and, you
Yes.
know. So, I mean, maybe it's worth just, you know, just give it a thought process, but, you know. I'm not optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, the process could evolve.
We could discuss it,
You start it,
yeah.
and then it turns into, you know, an overwhelming demand for community events on the calendar, and then we revisit it. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Or maybe just, you know, thinking of a solution that doesn't involve the township, you know, maybe it can be done outside.
Again, I
Yes,
just think
Patty.
it's a good
If
community.
you have the downtown revitalization and you have the Chamber of Commerce creating calendars, why couldn't you just put, I'm assuming that downtown group.
Just a link
is
to them.
looking, right, to create that, because their whole goal is to drive activity into the community. This should be a project for them with a link on our site that says, community events, click here and it takes you off of us.
Yeah.
Nobody gets more work, it's a link. Chris just.
And
has-
what we should do is recognize, you know, what groups are recognized in the community, like the Chamber of Commerce or something.
It should really.
Because
just
it can't be just Kevin Suey wants to put something on the website, Citizen X.
Well, and it can't be political as well, too. So there's
Exactly.
certain groups that are doing certain things.
Yeah.
That only get their face on that calendar.
Yeah.
This specific policy, so I don't know if you've seen it, but the specific policy here says sites that are owned or managed by a political party, a candidate, or special interest groups, these are not allowed, are political in nature, or associated with, sponsored by, or serving a candidate or elected office, any political party, organization supporting or seeking defeat of any candidate for elective office ballot purpose. It goes on as much, but it's fairly restrictive, the Virginia Beach one. So you're right, you're absolutely right. The question is, can we write something that protects us from that kind of thing? I agree with you, we need to be concerned about it, but I think we're talking about a link on a website. I mean, it's like saying, can I have a phone number? You know, it's pretty basic in today's world. You
Why
know?
don't we stay where we're at, and we're good there right now, you know?
There's nothing wrong with where we're at, it just could it be better, I think is the question.
And if we don't like it, we always could shut the link down.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, like, we could do it every 6 months, this policy will be reviewed. It automatically expires if it's not reapproved, type of thing. And then that way, if it starts to be a hassle, it just sunsets. So maybe we could write something like that, and the council can vote it down if they want to, or we can approve it.
You wanna work on that, Jeff?
Yep,
All right, good deal.
More comments?
Lloyd? Come on, you have to say something. All right, 10L correspondence, seeing none. Item number 11, open session, second open session. Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Everybody's wore out? All right. All right, closed session. Jack, what do we have?
I've got nothing.
I have nothing. Ralph?
I have nothing.
And no personnel matters? Nope. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Sullivan.
Second?
Second by Mr. O'Day, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The ayes have it.